The gunshot that shattered Elena Carter's wedding wasn't meant for the groom. 3 armed men, one impossible claim. A stranger who knew about the baby she'd hidden from everyone, even herself, until 2 months ago. Now, with broken glass glittering across white roses and screams tearing through the chapel, Elena faces a choice that will rewrite everything. Trust the man holding a gun to her fiancé's head, or die with the secret growing inside her. This is a story about survival, deception, and the violence that comes when someone turns your unborn child into a weapon. Stay until the end. Drop a comment with your city so I can see how far this story travels. Hit that like button. Let's go. The dress was too tight. Elena Carter stood in the bridal suite of the Rosewood Manor, staring at herself in the full-length mirror, and the only thing she could think about was how the bodice dug into her ribs with every breath. The seamstress had let it out twice already. There wouldn't be a third time. "You look perfect," her maid of honor said from somewhere behind her, voice bright with champagne and sentiment. Elena didn't feel perfect. She felt like a liar in expensive lace. Her hand drifted to her stomach, still flat, still hiding the truth, before she caught herself and reached for her bouquet instead. White peonies and eucalyptus. David had picked them. David picked everything. The venue, the caterer, the honeymoon destination. She'd nodded through it all, grateful that someone else was willing to make decisions while her life quietly spiraled into something she no longer recognized. 29 years old, a successful veterinary practice, a fiancé who checked every box her parents had ever mentioned, a future so carefully constructed it felt like walking through a museum exhibit of someone else's life, and a pregnancy she hadn't told anyone about, not David, not her mother, not even the father, because there wasn't one, not really, just a vial. A clinic. A choice she'd made at 2 a.m. on a Tuesday after her best friend announced her 3rd pregnancy, and Elena realized she was running out of time. The ceremony was supposed to start in 15 minutes. She wondered if she'd make it through the vows without throwing up. "Elena?" Her maid of honor, Jessica, who'd known her since college, stepped closer, concern creasing her forehead. "You okay? You look pale." "I'm fine." The lie came easily. She'd been practicing it for weeks. "Just nervous." "You're marrying David Mitchell. Half the women in this city would kill to be in that dress." Jessica adjusted Elena's veil, her smile softening. "He's one of the good ones, Elle. You know that, right?" Elena nodded because it was true. David was good, reliable, kind, boring as hell, but that wasn't a crime. He'd never raised his voice, never forgotten an anniversary, never looked at her like she was anything other than exactly what he wanted. That should have been enough. The door opened and Elena's mother swept in, already crying, arms outstretched. "Oh, sweetheart, you're beautiful." Elena let herself be hugged, breathing in her mother's perfume, the same Chanel No. 5 she'd worn for 30 years. Constancy, tradition, everything Elena had built her life around and was about to betray in the most permanent way possible. "5 minutes?" someone called from the hallway. Her mother pulled back, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue. "Your father's waiting. Are you ready?" "No." "Yes." They made their way downstairs, Elena's heels clicking against marble floors while her heart hammered against her ribs. The chapel was at the end of a long hallway lined with mirrors. She caught glimpses of herself with every step. A stranger in white, a woman playing a role. She could still turn around, call it off, admit the truth. But to what end? David didn't know about the pregnancy. The baby wasn't his. Starting over at 29 with a child and no plan felt less like freedom and more like jumping off a cliff without checking if there was water below. So she kept walking. The chapel doors stood open ahead, revealing rows of guests in their best clothes, flowers everywhere, soft music playing. Picture perfect. Her father waited just inside, looking uncomfortable in his tuxedo, offering his arm. "You sure about this?" he murmured as she took it. It was the first time anyone had asked. Elena opened her mouth to answer, and that's when she heard the first gunshot. The sound was wrong, too sharp, too loud. For a split second, Elena's brain tried to make it something else. A car backfiring, a champagne cork, anything but what it actually was. Then someone screamed. Her father's arm went rigid under her hand. "What the hell?" More gunshots, rapid, overlapping. The music cut off mid-note, and the screaming got louder. Guests scrambling from their seats in a chaos of overturned chairs and panicked voices. Elena stood frozen in the doorway, her bouquet slipping from her hands. 3 men in dark suits pushed through the side entrance of the chapel, and they were holding guns, not tucked away, not concealed, but out and visible and pointed at the crowd. One of them fired into the ceiling and plaster rained down like snow. "Everyone on the ground! Now!" People dropped. Her father tried to pull her back into the hallway, but Elena couldn't move, couldn't process what she was seeing. This wasn't real. This was her wedding. Things like this didn't happen at weddings. David was at the altar, his face chalk white, frozen in place beside the priest. One of the gunmen, tall, buzz-cut, moving with military precision, swept his weapon across the room. "Where's the bride?" Elena's breath stopped. They were looking for her. Her father's grip tightened. "Come on." But before he could finish, a 4th man appeared. But before, he came through the main doors behind her, moving fast and silent. And Elena didn't see him until he was already there, one hand closing around her wrist, the other pressing something cold and hard against her spine. A gun. "Don't scream," he said quietly. "Don't run. Do exactly what I say." His voice was calm, almost gentle. That made it worse. Elena's father spun around, face contorting with rage. "Get your hands off!" The man moved the gun just enough, not pointing it at her father, just showing it, and that was enough. Her father went still. "Walk," the man said to Elena. "Now." She didn't walk. Her legs wouldn't move. Everything was white noise and adrenaline and the nauseating certainty that she was about to die in a wedding dress she'd never wanted. The man leaned closer, his breath warm against her ear. "The baby you're carrying is mine. You can come with me and live, or stay here and die. Your choice." The world tilted. Elena turned her head just enough to see him, really see him for the first time. Dark hair, sharp features, eyes that were steady and cold and somehow familiar, even though she'd never seen him before in her life. "I don't—" "Yes, you do." His grip on her wrist tightened. "The clinic, Rothman Fertility. They used my genetic sample without my consent. That child is biologically mine, and right now, a lot of very dangerous people know that. So unless you want to become a statistic, you're coming with me." In the chapel, one of the armed men shouted something Elena didn't catch. More gunfire. Someone was crying. This wasn't happening. This couldn't be happening. "You're insane," she whispered. "Probably." He pulled her backward, toward the side exit. "But I'm also the only reason you're still breathing." Her father lunged. The stranger didn't hesitate. He swept his leg out, and her father went down hard, gasping. Before Elena could react, the man had her moving again, arm locked around her waist, dragging her through the door and into the hallway. She tried to fight, clawed at his arm, screamed. He didn't slow down. They hit the exterior door at a run, and suddenly they were outside, sunlight blinding after the dim hallway. A black SUV waited at the curb, engine running, rear door open. "Get in!" "No." He lifted her, literally lifted her off her feet, and shoved her into the back seat. She scrambled for the opposite door, but it was locked, child safety engaged, and then he was inside with her, and the SUV was moving before the door even closed. Elena twisted around, looking through the rear window. The chapel was chaos. Guests spilling out onto the lawn, security guards running toward the building, someone on the ground. David. She could see David standing at the entrance, phone to his ear, staring after the SUV. Then they turned a corner, and he was gone. She spun back to the man beside her. "Who the hell are you?" "Adrian Varelli." He was checking his phone, completely calm, like he hadn't just kidnapped someone from their own wedding. "And before you ask, no, I'm not letting you go. There were people with guns. Not my people." He glanced up, meeting her eyes. "Those men were sent to kill you. I was sent to extract you before they succeeded." Elena's hands were shaking. The whole world was shaking. "This is insane. You're insane. I don't even know you." "No, but I know you." Adrian pocketed his phone. "Elena Marie Carter, born November 14th, veterinarian, graduated top of your class from Cornell, engaged to David Mitchell, financial advisor, boring as paint. and 10 weeks pregnant with a child conceived via donor insemination at Rothman Fertility Clinic. The air left her lungs. How? Because Rothman didn't use a donor. Adrian's voice was flat, clinical. They used me, my genetic material, without my knowledge or consent. And when I found out, I also found out that someone else knew, someone who sees that child as leverage. Elena pressed back against the seat, trying to make sense of words that refused to form a coherent picture. That's not clinics don't just, this one did. He pulled out a folder from the seat pocket and dropped it in her lap. Medical records, DNA analysis, communications between Rothman's director and a man named Victor Osborne. Read it or don't. It's true either way. Her hands moved on autopilot, opening the folder. The first page was a lab report, genetic screening, 2 names at the top, Elena Carter and Adrian Varelli. Match probability, 99.97%. She was going to be sick. This is fake. It's not. You faked this. You, whoever you are, you're running some kind of... The SUV swerved hard and Elena crashed against the door. Adrian braced himself against the seat, already reaching for his gun. They found us faster than I expected, he muttered. Elena twisted to look through the rear window. Another vehicle, a dark sedan, was gaining on them, weaving through traffic. Hold on. Their driver, a woman Elena hadn't even noticed until now, floored the accelerator. They shot forward, the force pressing Elena back against the seat. The city blurred past in streaks of color and noise. The sedan stayed with them. Adrian lowered his window. Get down! What? He pushed her head down below the seat line just as the rear window exploded inward. Glass rained down, the sound of gunfire, sudden and deafening. Elena screamed, hands over her head, curled into a ball on the floorboard. More shots. The SUV swerved again. Someone was shouting, the driver, maybe. And then Adrian was firing back, the sound impossibly loud in the confined space. It lasted forever. It lasted 10 seconds. And then the shooting stopped. Elena stayed down, breathing in short gasps, glass in her hair, the smell of gunpowder thick in her throat. Her ears were ringing, her whole body was shaking. We're clear, the driver called. Adrian pulled Elena upright. She fought him on instinct, but he was stronger, moving her like she weighed nothing, checking her over with quick, efficient movements. You're not hit. It wasn't a question. I want to go home. Her voice came out small, broken. Please, I just want to go home. Something shifted in his expression, not quite sympathy, but close. You don't have a home anymore. Not until this is over. What's over? What is this? He sat back, holstering his gun, and for the first time since he'd appeared, he looked tired. Your pregnancy isn't an accident. It's a transaction. Someone paid Rothman to use my genetic material specifically to create leverage against me. You're carrying a child that makes you valuable to people who don't care if you live or die. As long as they can use what you're carrying. The words were ridiculous. Impossible. The plot of a bad thriller. But the bullet holes in the window were real. The blood on Adrian's sleeve was real. Elena looked down at the folder still in her lap. Medical records. Her name. His name. A genetic link she hadn't consented to. I'm just a vet, she whispered. I'm nobody. Why would anyone... You're nobody, Adrian agreed. But I'm not. And now, because of Rothman's choices, your child is caught in the middle of a war you didn't sign up for. She wanted to argue, to scream, to wake up and discover this was some kind of stress-induced nightmare. Instead, she asked the only question that mattered. Who are you? Adrian was quiet for a long moment, watching her with those cold, steady eyes. Then he said, someone you should have been afraid of from the beginning. Booked. They drove for over an hour. Elena lost track of where they were after the first 20 minutes. Highways, side roads, routes that twisted back on themselves until she had no idea if they were heading north or south or in circles. She sat in silence, the folder open in her lap, forcing herself to read through documents that shouldn't exist. Lab reports, emails, a contract between Rothman Fertility and a shell corporation called Meridian Holdings, and photos. The first one was of her leaving the clinic 2 months ago. Someone had been watching, documenting. The second was of Adrian, younger, military uniform. The caption underneath read, Captain Adrian Varelli, Special Operations Discharge 2019. The third photo made her stomach turn. A man in a hospital bed, machines keeping him alive, his face barely visible beneath bandages and tubes. The caption, Vincent Varelli, DOB, March 22nd, 1958. Status, critical. Is that your father? She asked quietly. Adrian glanced at the photo. Was. He died 3 weeks ago. I'm sorry. Don't be. His voice was flat. He was a bastard who made enemies faster than friends. I spent most of my life trying to distance myself from his business. Didn't matter. When he got sick, those enemies saw an opportunity. Elena closed the folder. What kind of business? The kind that doesn't show up on tax returns. Which meant criminal, which meant dangerous. Which meant Elena had somehow walked straight into the middle of a life that had nothing to do with hers and everything to do with a choice made by someone at a clinic she'd trusted. Why me? She asked. If someone wanted leverage against you, why pick me? I'm nobody. I have no connection to you. That's exactly why. Adrian shifted in his seat, checking his phone again. He'd been doing that every few minutes, like he was expecting bad news. You're clean, no criminal record, no debts, no scandals. Just a nice, normal woman making a nice, normal choice to have a child. Perfect cover. Cover for what? To create a biological heir without my knowledge or consent. Someone who could claim inheritance rights to my father's estate. Someone who could be controlled. Elena's head was spinning. Your father's estate? You mean money? I mean power. Adrian's jaw tightened. My father ran half the black market operations on the East Coast. When he died, that empire didn't just disappear. People are fighting over it. And someone decided the best way to secure their claim was to create a biological Varelli heir they could control from birth. By using me. By using you. The SUV slowed. Elena looked out the window and saw they were pulling up to a gate, high, wrought iron, flanked by stone pillars. Beyond it, a long driveway stretched toward a house that looked more like a fortress. Where are we? Somewhere they won't find you. Adrian opened his door as the gate swung inward. For now. The driver, a woman in her 40s with short gray hair and the kind of calm competence that suggested military training, parked in front of the main entrance. She got out without a word and disappeared inside. Adrian waited for Elena to move. When she didn't, he sighed. You can come willingly, or I can carry you. Your choice. This isn't a choice. You kidnapped me. I saved your life. You ruined my wedding. Your wedding was going to end with you dead in that chapel. His voice was hard now, impatient. Those men weren't there for show. They were there to kill you, take tissue samples, and disappear. So yes, I ruined your wedding. You're welcome. Elena stared at him, at the stranger who claimed to be the biological father of her child, who claimed to have saved her life, who'd pulled her into a nightmare she didn't understand and couldn't escape. She thought about David, about her parents, about the life she'd been living 3 hours ago. Then she thought about the bullet holes in the window, and she got out of the car. The house was massive, not mansion massive, but close. Modern architecture blended with old-world security, floor-to-ceiling windows that were almost certainly bulletproof, cameras everywhere, doors that looked like they could withstand a siege. Inside, the decor was minimalist, clean lines, neutral colors, no personal touches. It looked less like a home and more like a staging area. Adrian led her through a hallway and into a large living room where 2 people were waiting. The first was the driver. Up close, Elena could see scars along her jawline and a tattoo peeking out from under her sleeve, military insignia. The second was a man in his 30s, lean and wiry, with the kind of face that suggested he smiled a lot, but wasn't smiling now. This her? He asked. This is her? Adrian gestured to Elena. Elena Carter. Elena, this is Kira and Marcus. They work for me. Work for you doing what? Elena asked. Keeping you alive, Kira said bluntly, so try not to make that harder than it needs to be. Marcus moved to the window, checking the perimeter with the ease of someone who'd done it 1,000 times. Any tail? Lost them 20 minutes out, Adrian said. But they'll find us eventually. They always do. Then we don't have long. Marcus turned back to Elena, his expression softening slightly. I know this is a lot, and I know you probably think we're insane, but everything Adrian told you is true. You're in danger, and right now we're the only ones standing between you and people who will kill you without hesitation. Elena wanted to argue, to demand proof, to call the police, but the police couldn't help with this. She knew that instinctively. Whatever this was, it was too big, too coordinated, too far outside the boundaries of normal law enforcement. What do you want from me? She asked. Cooperation, Adrian said. Bushwool, stay here, stay safe. Let us figure out who's behind this and shut them down. And then what? Then you go back to your life. What life? The words came out sharper than she intended. My fiancé just watched me get dragged out of our wedding. My family probably thinks I've been kidnapped or killed, and I'm pregnant with a child that apparently makes me a target for people who will kill me. What life am I going back to? Silence. Adrian exchanged a look with Kira. Something unspoken passed between them. We'll figure it out, he said finally. It wasn't an answer. It was a placeholder, a lie dressed up as reassurance. Elena sat down on the nearest couch, her legs finally giving out. The wedding dress bunched around her, layers of tulle and lace that suddenly felt like a costume from someone else's life. I need to call my parents, she said. No. They'll think I'm dead. Better that than leading a hit squad to your location. Adrian pulled out his phone. I'll have Marcus send a message, anonymous, proof of life, but no contact until this is over. That's not good enough. It'll have to be. Elena looked up at him, this stranger who'd upended her entire existence in the space of an hour. You don't get to make that call. Yes, Adrian said quietly. I do. Because if you contact anyone, your parents, your friends, David, you're signing their death warrant along with yours. These people don't leave loose ends. The certainty in his voice was what convinced her. Not the logic, not the fear, the certainty. He knew what he was talking about, and that was the most terrifying thing of all. They gave her a room on the second floor. It was nice, too nice for a prison, which is what it felt like. King bed, private bathroom, windows that overlooked a garden Elena suspected she wouldn't be allowed to walk in. Kira brought her clothes, jeans, t-shirts, nothing like the tailored slacks and blouses Elena usually wore, but functional. You can't stay in the dress, Kira said, setting the clothes on the bed. It's a beacon. Anyone looking for you will be looking for a bride. Elena stared at the white fabric pooled around her feet. I was supposed to be married right now. I know. No, you don't. She looked up, meeting Kira's eyes. You don't know what it's like to have your entire life torn apart by someone else's choices, to find out you're not even in control of your own body. Kira was quiet for a moment. Then she sat down on the edge of the bed, her expression unreadable. You're right, she said. I don't know what that's like, but I know what it's like to be a weapon someone else built, and I know what it's like to survive it. How? By not giving them what they want. Kira stood. Change, rest. We'll bring you food. And when you're ready, we'll talk strategy. She left before Elena could ask what strategy meant. Alone, Elena peeled off the wedding dress and let it fall to the floor in a heap of expensive fabric and broken dreams. She changed into the jeans and t-shirt, moving mechanically, her mind somewhere far away. Then she sat on the bed and finally let herself cry. Not for the wedding, not for David, who she'd been about to marry out of fear rather than love. For the life she'd thought she was building, the control she'd thought she had, the future she'd carefully planned that had just been incinerated by forces she didn't understand. She cried until her eyes burned and her throat ached, and there was nothing left. And then she lay down on the bed, exhausted, and stared at the ceiling. Somewhere in this house, Adrian Varelli was making plans. Calls, decisions about her life without her input. Somewhere in the city, people were looking for her, hunting her. And somewhere inside her, a child was growing. A child she'd wanted, a child she'd chosen, a child that now carried the genetic legacy of a man she'd met 3 hours ago. This was real. This was happening. And Elena had no idea how to survive it. She must have fallen asleep because when she opened her eyes, the light had changed. Evening. The room was dim. Someone knocked on the door. "Come in," she said, her voice rough. Marcus entered, carrying a tray. "Figured you might be hungry." He set it on the bedside table. Soup, bread, water, simple. Elena sat up slowly. "What time is it?" "Almost 7. You've been out for a few hours." He leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets. "Adrian wants to talk to you, when you're ready." "What if I'm never ready?" "Then we'll wait." Marcus smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "But waiting won't make this easier. Nothing about this is easy." "No, it's not." He pushed off the wall. "For what it's worth, Adrian didn't plan this. He's just as pissed as you are. He's the one with the gun. He's the one keeping you alive." Elena picked up the soup, more for something to do with her hands than actual hunger. Why does he care? If this is about his father's estate, why not just let them have it? Walk away. Because walking away isn't how Adrian works. Marcus headed for the door, pausing at the threshold. "And because that child you're carrying, it's his, whether he planned it or not. He's not going to let someone turn his kid into a pawn." He left. Elena ate the soup without tasting it. When she was done, she stood, smoothed her clothes, and made a decision. She was going to talk to Adrian, and she was going to get answers. She found him in a room at the back of the house that looked like a command center. Monitors, maps, computers. Kira was there, along with Marcus and 2 other people Elena didn't recognize. They all stopped talking when she walked in. Adrian looked up from a laptop. "You're awake." "I want to know everything," Elena said. "No more vague answers. No more, 'you're in danger,' without explaining why. If I'm stuck here, if my life has been blown apart, I deserve to know the truth." Adrian closed the laptop. "Fair enough, sit." Elena sat. For the next hour, he laid it out. All of it. His father's criminal empire, the power vacuum left after his death, the factions fighting for control, and the man at the center of it all, Victor Osborne. "Victor worked with my father for 20 years, Adrian said. "He was his second in command, loyal, ruthless. And when my father died, Victor expected to inherit everything. But my father's will named me as the primary beneficiary." "Why?" Elena asked. "If you weren't involved in his business." "Because he thought I'd destroy it." Adrian's smile was bitter. "He was right. I don't want his empire. I don't want his money. I want it all burned to the ground. But Victor doesn't see it that way. He sees me as the obstacle standing between him and power. So he created a child to bypass you." "Exactly. If he can prove there's a biological Varelli heir, someone he can control, he can contest the will, claim guardianship, use the child to legitimize his takeover." Elena's hand drifted to her stomach. "And I'm just collateral damage." "No." Adrian's voice was firm. "You're the mother, which makes you a threat. If you're alive, you have rights, custody, control. Victor can't afford that." "So he wants me dead." "He wants you dead," Adrian confirmed. The room was silent. Elena looked around at the faces watching her. Kira, Marcus, the others. People who'd signed up for this life. She hadn't. "What happens now?" she asked. "Now we find Victor before he finds us," Adrian said. "We shut down his operation, expose what Rothman did, and we make sure you and that child are safe." "And if we can't?" Adrian held her gaze. "We will." It wasn't a promise. It was a statement of intent, and somehow that made it more believable. Elena stood. "Then tell me what to do." For the first time since she'd met him, Adrian looked surprised. "You want to help?" "No, I want to go home. But since that's not an option, I'd rather be part of the solution than a victim waiting to be saved." A slow smile crossed his face. "All right then. Let's get to work." March. Over the next 3 days, Elena learned more about Adrian Varelli than she'd learned about David in 2 years of dating. He was methodical, precise. Every action calculated, every risk weighed. He didn't sleep much. Kira mentioned he'd been military, special operations, discharged under circumstances no one would explain, and it showed in everything he did. The way he moved, the way he thought, the way he approached problems like tactical operations. But he wasn't cold. Not entirely. She saw it in small moments. The way he asked if she needed anything before meetings. The way he made sure she ate. The way he'd pause just for a second whenever she mentioned the baby. "You don't have to do this," she said on the third night. They were in the command center going through financial records Kira had pulled from Rothman's servers. "Do what?" "Pretend you care about the baby." Adrian looked up from his laptop. "I'm not pretending. You didn't ask for this. You didn't consent to having your genetic material used. You could walk away." "I could," he agreed, "but I won't." "Why?" He was quiet for a long moment, his expression unreadable. Then he said, "Because that child didn't ask for this either, and I won't let Victor turn them into a weapon." It was the most honest thing he'd said to her. Elena believed him. On the fourth day, everything changed. Kira burst into the command center at dawn, her face grim. "We've got a problem." Adrian was on his feet instantly. "What kind of problem?" "Victor knows where we are." The room went still. "How?" Marcus demanded. "Don't know. Could be a leak. Could be surveillance we missed. Doesn't matter. He's got people on the way. We have maybe an hour." Elena's heart kicked into overdrive. "What do we do?" "We move," Adrian said, already grabbing gear. "Now." They were packed and in vehicles within 10 minutes. Elena barely had time to process what was happening before she was in the back of an SUV again, Kira at the wheel, Adrian beside her with a rifle across his lap. "Where are we going?" she asked. "Somewhere off-grid," Adrian said. "A place Victor doesn't know about." "You said this place was safe." It was. Until it wasn't. The drive was tense, silent. Elena kept checking the rear window, expecting to see vehicles behind them. They drove for 2 hours, switching cars twice, until they finally pulled up to what looked like an abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. "This is off-grid?" Elena asked skeptically. "It's temporary," Kira said. "We just need to regroup." Inside, the warehouse was surprisingly functional. Sleeping areas, supplies, communications equipment. "How many safe houses do you have?" Elena asked Adrian. "Enough." They'd been there less than an hour when Marcus's phone buzzed. He checked it, his expression darkening. "We've got incoming," Adrian swore. "How many?" "At least 6, maybe more." "How did they—" Kira stopped. "They tracked us." "How?" Adrian demanded. Marcus looked at Elena. "Her phone, the one from the wedding, did she still have it?" Elena's blood went cold. I don't know. I wasn't thinking." Adrian was already moving, searching through the bags they'd brought. He found it in Elena's purse, the phone she'd carried to the wedding, tucked into a hidden pocket. "Still on, still transmitting." "Son of a bitch," he muttered. "They're 2 minutes out," Marcus said, checking his weapon. "We need to move." "No time." Adrian turned to Kira. "Get her out the back. Take the secondary route. Don't stop until you're clear." "What about you?" Kira asked. "We hold them here, buy you time." "Adrian, go." Kira grabbed Elena's arm, pulling her toward the rear exit. Elena resisted, looking back at Adrian. "You can't." "I can, and I will. Now move." They were outside before Elena could argue, running across an empty lot toward a second vehicle Kira had stashed behind a chain-link fence. Behind them, the first gunshots rang out. Elena stumbled, but Kira hauled her forward. "Don't look back. Just run." They reached the vehicle, a nondescript sedan, and Kira shoved Elena into the passenger seat. The engine roared to life and they were moving before the door even closed. More gunfire. Louder now. Closer. "They'll be okay," Kira said, but her voice was tight. "Adrian knows what he's doing." Elena twisted in her seat, looking back at the warehouse. Smoke was rising from one of the windows. "We can't just leave them. We can't help them by dying." Kira's hands were white-knuckled on the wheel. "Adrian made a call. We follow it." They drove in silence, cutting through side streets and alleys, putting distance between them and the chaos. Elena's phone, the burner Kira had given her, buzzed. A text from an unknown number. Clear. Regrouping at Point C. Stay off main roads. Kira exhaled. "They're alive." "For now," Elena whispered. Point C turned out to be a motel 40 miles outside the city, the kind of place that rented by the hour and didn't ask questions. Adrian was already there when they arrived, along with Marcus. They were both covered in dust and streaked with soot, but alive. Elena was out of the car before Kira even parked, crossing the distance to Adrian without thinking. "You're an idiot," she said. He looked startled. "Excuse me? You could have died back there. For what? To buy us 10 minutes? 10 minutes was all you needed. That's not the point. Then what is?" Elena opened her mouth and realized she didn't have an answer. She was angry, terrified, and standing way too close to a man she barely knew who kept risking his life for hers. "The point," she said finally, "is that you don't get to make unilateral decisions about who lives and who dies, not without asking." Adrian stared at her. Then, impossibly, he smiled. "Noted." Behind them, Marcus coughed. "We should get inside. We're exposed out here." They moved into one of the motel rooms. Cramped, dingy, but defensible. Kira swept it for bugs, while Marcus set up a perimeter alert on his laptop. Adrian sat down heavily on the edge of the bed, wincing. "You're hurt," Elena said. "I'm fine." "You're bleeding." He looked down at his side where his shirt was torn and dark with blood. "It's nothing." "Let me see." "Elena, I'm a vet. I've stitched up worse. Let me see." He hesitated, then lifted his shirt. The wound was a graze, deep enough to bleed but not life-threatening. Elena found a first aid kit in the bathroom and set to work cleaning and bandaging it, her hands steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through her. "You don't have to do this," Adrian said quietly. "Yes, I do. You keep saving my life. Least I can do is patch you up." She finished the bandage and stepped back. Their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. Then Adrian said, "Thank you." "You're welcome." The moment broke. Elena turned away, her heart pounding for reasons that had nothing to do with fear. Across the room, Kira was on the phone, her voice low and urgent. When she hung up, her expression was grim. "Victor's escalating. He's put a bounty on Elena. $500,000. Every mercenary and bounty hunter on the East Coast is going to be looking for her." Elena's stomach dropped. "How do we stop that?" "We don't," Adrian said. "We use it." "Use it how?" "We leak false information, make them think you're somewhere you're not, spread them thin, and while they're chasing ghosts, we go after Victor directly." "That's insane," Elena said. "It's the only play we have." She looked around the room, at Kira, at Marcus, at Adrian, still bleeding through the bandage she'd just applied. These people were risking everything for her. A stranger, a woman caught in a war that wasn't hers. And in that moment, Elena made a choice. "Okay," she said. "Let's do it." Adrian's expression shifted. "You're sure?" "No, but I'm done running." He nodded slowly. "Then we go on the offensive." The plan was simple in theory, dangerous in practice. They would use Elena as bait. Not literally. Adrian made that clear when she first suggested it. But the idea was close enough to make her skin crawl. They'd plant false intelligence suggesting Elena was being moved to a secure location upstate, leak it through channels Victor was known to monitor, and when his people took the bait, Adrian and his team would trace the response back to its source. "It's a shell game," Marcus explained, setting up equipment on the motel room's desk. "We make them think they know where you are, watch who moves, and follow the trail back to Victor." "And if they figure out it's a trap?" Elena asked. "Then we adapt." Adrian was cleaning his weapons with the kind of focus that suggested he'd done this 1,000 times. But Victor's ego is his weakness. He'll want to be the one who brings you in. He'll overcommit. "You're betting my life on his ego." "I'm betting your life on 20 years of knowing how he thinks." Adrian looked up, meeting her eyes. "If I'm wrong, we'll know in time to get you out." That's not exactly reassuring. It's not supposed to be. It's supposed to be honest. Kira came back from her supply run with coffee and food that looked like it came from a gas station. She dropped the bag on the bed. "Eat. You're going to need energy." Elena picked at a sandwich without tasting it. The past 4 days had been a crash course in survival, learning to think tactically, to read situations, to trust her instincts even when they screamed at her to run. She was still terrified, but the sharp edge of panic had dulled into something more manageable. Fear with purpose. That's what Kira called it. "How long until we know if it worked?" Elena asked. "Couple hours, maybe less." Marcus was typing rapidly. eyes fixed on multiple screens showing data streams Elena didn't understand. I'm seeding the intel now through 3 different channels. If Victor's monitoring any of them, he'll see it. And then? Then we see who bites. Adrian stood, holstering his weapon. I need to make a call. Kira, stay with her. He stepped outside. Through the window, Elena could see him pacing, phone to his ear, his posture tense. He's worried, Kira said quietly. About the plan? About you. Kira sat down across from her, arms crossed. He doesn't let people in. Hasn't since he left the service. But you're different. I'm a problem he inherited. You're carrying his child. That makes you more than a problem. Elena looked down at her hands. 10 weeks. The pregnancy barely showed, just a slight thickening around her middle that she could still hide. But it was there, real, growing. Does he want this? She asked. The baby, I mean. Really want it? Kira was quiet for a moment. I think he's still figuring that out. Adrian doesn't do things halfway. If he decides he wants to be a father, he'll commit completely. But right now he's focused on keeping you alive long enough to have that choice. What if we don't stop Victor? We will. But what if we don't? Kira's expression hardened. Then a lot of people are going to die before Victor gets anywhere near you or that child. Starting with me. The certainty in her voice was absolute. Elena believed her. Adrian came back inside, his expression unreadable. We've got movement. Marcus spun his laptop around. Already? That was fast. Too fast. Adrian leaned over the screen, scanning the data. Victor's got people mobilizing, 3 teams, but they're not heading upstate. Where then? Here. The temperature in the room dropped 10 degrees. How? Kira was already moving, checking weapons, gathering gear. We scrubbed the phones, changed vehicles. There's no way There's always a way. Adrian's jaw was tight. We missed something. Or someone talked, Marcus muttered. No one talked. Adrian's voice was sharp. Focus. How long do we have? 20 minutes? Maybe 30? That's not enough time to relocate. So we stand and fight. Kira was loading magazines with practiced efficiency. We've done it before. Not with a pregnant civilian in the mix. Adrian turned to Elena. Can you shoot? What? A gun. Can you shoot one? I've never... No, I can't. Then you're staying in the bathroom. Lock the door. Don't come out until I come get you. He pulled a pistol from his bag and checked it. If someone who isn't me tries to come through that door, aim for center mass and pull the trigger until it's empty. He handed her the gun. Elena stared at it. The weight was wrong. Too heavy. Too real. I can't do this. You won't have to, but if you do, don't hesitate. Adrian's hand covered hers, steadying the weapon. Point, shoot, survive in that order. Adrian, bathroom, now. Kira was already pushing furniture against the door, creating a barricade. Marcus had positioned himself by the window with a rifle. The room had transformed from a temporary shelter into a kill box in under 2 minutes. Elena backed toward the bathroom, the gun heavy in her hands. At the door, she stopped. Don't die. Adrian looked at her, something unreadable crossing his face. Not planning on it. She closed herself in the bathroom, locked the door, and sat down in the bathtub with the gun in her lap and her heart trying to pound its way out of her chest. Outside, she could hear movement, voices, the sound of someone checking equipment. Then silence. Waiting. Elena counted her breaths. 1, 2, 3. Somewhere outside, tires screeched. Contact, Marcus said, his voice muffled through the door. Gunfire erupted. The first shots were distant, outside the motel, then closer. The window shattered and Elena flinched, pressing herself lower in the tub. More gunfire, continuous, overlapping. The bathroom walls were thin and she could hear everything, shouts, movement, the sound of something heavy hitting the floor. Someone screamed. Elena gripped the gun tighter, her hands shaking so badly she could barely hold it. The door to the motel room crashed inward. Heavy footsteps. Unfamiliar voices. Clear left. Bedroom's empty. Check the bathroom. Elena's breath stopped. Footsteps approached. The doorknob rattled. It's locked. Kick it in. She raised the gun with both hands, aiming at the door. Her whole body was trembling. She couldn't do this. She couldn't shoot someone. She was a vet. She saved lives. She didn't take them. The door shuddered under impact. Once, twice, the lock splintered. The door burst open and a man filled the doorway. Big, armed, his weapon sweeping the small space. His eyes locked on Elena. She pulled the trigger. The recoil shocked her. The gun jerked in her hands, the sound deafening in the confined space. She missed, fired again. Again. One of the shots hit. The man stumbled backward, clutching his shoulder, and then Adrian was there, appearing behind him, moving with brutal efficiency. There was a brief struggle, a crack. The man dropped. Adrian was in the bathroom before the body hit the floor, pulling the gun from Elena's frozen hands. "You're okay. You're okay." His voice was steady, grounding. "It's over. I shot him. You did what you had to do. Is he? He's alive. Shoulder wound. He'll survive." Adrian helped her to her feet. "We need to move. Now." Elena's legs barely held her. She let Adrian guide her out of the bathroom, past the body in the doorway, through the wreckage of the motel room. Glass everywhere. Bullet holes in the walls. Blood on the carpet. Kira was binding a wound on her arm, her face pale but focused. Marcus was dragging two unconscious men toward the door. "How many?" Adrian asked. 6 total. 2 dead, 4 subdued. Marcus straightened. "But more will come. We can't stay. Cars out back. Go." They moved as a unit, Elena stumbling in the middle, still processing what had just happened. She'd shot someone. Pulled the trigger. The shock of it hadn't fully hit yet, but she could feel it waiting, a wave building on the horizon. The car was where they'd left it. Kira took the wheel again, Marcus riding shotgun. Adrian sat in the back with Elena, his hand steady on her shoulder. They were 3 blocks away when the motel exploded. The blast wave rocked the car. Elena twisted around, watching flames engulf the building they'd been inside minutes ago. "Jesus Christ," Marcus breathed. "They weren't taking chances." Adrian's voice was grim. "If we'd stayed another 5 minutes..." He didn't finish. He didn't need to. Kira was driving fast, weaving through side streets, putting distance between them and the destruction. "Where to?" "North. There's a safe house 2 hours out, off the grid, hardened location. They won't find us there." "You said that about the last 2 places," Elena said quietly. "This one's different." "How?" "Because no one knows about it. Not Marcus, not Kira. Just me." He met her eyes. "It was my father's. Victor doesn't know it exists." The drive was silent, everyone processing what had just happened. Elena kept seeing the man in the doorway, the moment she'd pulled the trigger, the look in his eyes when the bullet hit. She pressed her hands against her stomach, feeling for movement even though she knew it was too early. The baby wouldn't quicken for weeks yet, but she needed the reassurance. Needed to know that despite everything, despite the violence and chaos, the life inside her was still there. Still growing. Still hers. "You did good back there," Adrian said after a while. "I shot someone." "You defended yourself." "It's not the same thing." "In this world it is." Elena looked at him, really looked at him, this man who dragged her into his nightmare. Who kept saving her life? Who carried violence like other people carried car keys, necessary, familiar, unremarkable. "How do you live like this?" she asked. "One day at a time." He shifted, wincing as the movement pulled at his bandaged side. "It gets easier." "I don't want it to get easier." "I know." The safe house was exactly what Adrian had promised. Remote, fortified, and completely off anyone's radar. It sat at the end of a long dirt road surrounded by woods. No neighbors for miles. Inside it was sparse but functional. A main room with a fireplace. A kitchen that looked like it hadn't been used in years. 2 bedrooms upstairs. "My father used this place when he needed to disappear," Adrian explained, checking windows and exits with automatic precision. No paper trail, no utilities in his name, completely dark. "How long can we stay?" Kira asked, already setting up a perimeter system. "As long as it takes." Marcus was on his laptop again, monitoring channels. "Victor's going to know we survived the motel. Question is, how long before he figures out where we went?" "He won't." Adrian sounded certain. "This place doesn't exist in any database he has access to." "You hope." I know. Elena sat down on a worn couch, exhaustion finally catching up with her. 4 days. That's all it had been since her wedding. 4 days and her entire life had been dismantled, rebuilt, and blown apart again. She thought about David, wondered if he was looking for her, if he'd called the police, if he'd moved on. Part of her hoped he had. The life she'd been building with him felt like fiction now, a story she'd told herself about who she was supposed to be. You should rest, Adrian said, appearing beside her. I'm fine. You were just in a firefight. You're not fine. Neither are you. She gestured to his side where blood was seeping through the fresh bandage. That needs to be looked at. It's nothing. Stop saying that. She stood, moving toward him with purpose. You keep bleeding, you keep fighting, you keep acting like you're invincible. You're not. Let me help. He studied her for a long moment, then nodded. They moved to the kitchen where the light was better. Elena made him sit while she gathered supplies, what little there was. The first aid kit was basic but functional. Shirt off, she said. Adrian complied without argument, revealing a torso marked with scars. Old injuries, new ones, a map of violence written in scar tissue. Elena focused on the current wound. Her hasty bandaging from earlier had held, but it needed proper cleaning and fresh dressing. This is going to hurt, she warned. It already hurts. She worked carefully, cleaning the wound with steady hands despite the adrenaline still coursing through her. Adrian didn't flinch, didn't make a sound. Where did you learn to compartmentalize like that? She asked. The military? Special ops doesn't leave room for weakness. Pain isn't weakness. In my world, it is. Elena applied antiseptic, watching his jaw tighten fractionally. Your world sounds exhausting. It is. She finished wrapping the new bandage, her hands lingering on his skin longer than necessary. When she looked up, she found him watching her with an intensity that made her breath catch. Thank you, he said quietly. For what? For not falling apart. For being stronger than you think you are. I shot someone today. To save your own life. That takes courage. It takes desperation. Same thing sometimes. They were close. Too close. Elena could feel the heat radiating from his skin, could count the flecks of gold in his dark eyes. She stepped back. You should rest too. I will. After I check in with Marcus. He left the kitchen, pulling his shirt back on. Elena stayed where she was, trying to understand the tangle of emotions knotting in her chest. Fear, adrenaline, and something else, something she didn't want to name. Upstairs, she found one of the bedrooms. It was small, the bed covered with a faded quilt, but it was clean and quiet. She lay down without undressing, staring at the ceiling. Her phone buzzed. Not the burner, her actual phone, the one from the wedding that had gotten them found at the warehouse. She'd thought Adrian had destroyed it. Elena pulled it from her pocket. The screen showed a text from an unknown number. We know you're alive. We know you're with Varelli. Return within 48 hours and we'll let you walk away. Stay with him and you become a target permanently. This is your only chance. Her heart was pounding. She should show this to Adrian immediately, but something made her hesitate. What if they were telling the truth? What if there was a way out of this that didn't involve more violence? Another text came through. Your fiancé is worried. Your family thinks you're dead. You can go home, Elena. Just walk away. She thought about David, about her mother, about the life she'd had 4 days ago. Then she thought about the man in the bathroom doorway, the explosion at the motel, the $500,000 bounty on her head. They weren't offering her a way out. They were offering her a grave. Elena deleted the texts and powered off the phone. Then she went downstairs to find Adrian. He was in the main room with Marcus and Kira, all three bent over a laptop showing surveillance feeds. I need to tell you something, Elena said. Adrian looked up. What happened? She handed him the phone. They contacted me. 2 texts offering me a deal. He powered it on, read the messages, his expression darkening with each word. When he finished, he looked at Marcus. Can you trace this? Already on it. Marcus took the phone, connecting it to his equipment. Give me 5 minutes. Adrian turned back to Elena. Why didn't you answer? Because I knew it was a trap. Did you? The question hung in the air. Yes, Elena said firmly. I did. Something shifted in his expression. Relief, maybe. Or respect. They're getting desperate, Kira observed. That's good. Desperate people make mistakes. Or they escalate. Adrian was pacing now, the way he did when he was working through a problem. Victor's trying to separate us, divide and conquer, which means he knows we're stronger together. Are we? Elena asked. Stronger together? He stopped pacing, meeting her eyes. Yes, we are. Marcus swore. I've got the trace. Signals bouncing through 6 different servers, but the origin point is... He stopped, his face going pale. That can't be right. What? Adrian was at his side immediately. The text came from Rothman Fertility Clinic, the same clinic that used my genetic material, Adrian finished. His voice was ice. Victor's not just connected to Rothman. He owns them. The pieces fell into place with sickening clarity. The clinic hadn't made a mistake. They'd followed orders. Elena's pregnancy wasn't an accident or a mishap. It was a transaction. He planned this from the beginning, Elena said, her voice hollow. The whole thing. He knew I'd choose donor insemination. He made sure the clinic used your material. He's been controlling this from day one. Which means he has documentation, Adrian said. Medical records, genetic profiles, everything we'd need to prove what he did. And it's all at the clinic, Marcus added. Adrian's smile was cold. Then that's where we're going. That's insane, Kira said. The clinic will be crawling with security. Victor will expect us to make a move on it. He'll expect us to run, to hide. He won't expect us to go on a fence. Because it's suicide. Only if we're stupid about it. Adrian was already planning. She could see it in his eyes. We hit them tomorrow night. Small team. In and out before they know we're there. And Elena? Marcus asked. Stays here, secured, protected. No. Elena's voice cut through the planning. I'm going with you. Absolutely not. It's my medical records, my pregnancy, my life they've been manipulating. I'm going. You're pregnant and untrained. You'll be a liability. I was a liability at the motel too. I managed. By luck. By necessity. She crossed the room, standing toe-to-toe with him. I'm done being protected like a piece of cargo. If we're doing this, I'm part of it. Adrian's jaw clenched. For a long moment, they stood locked in silent battle. Finally, he said, You follow orders. Exactly. No improvisation, no heroics. Agreed. And if I tell you to run, you run. Fine. I mean it, Elena. So do I. Kira whistled low. Well, this should be interesting. They spent the rest of the night planning. Marcus pulled blueprints of the clinic, 3 floors, multiple wings, security on every entrance. Kira mapped exit routes and potential complications. Adrian walked Elena through basic tactical movement, how to stay low, how to move quietly, how to follow in formation. You're not a soldier, he reminded her. You're not expected to fight. Your job is to get to the records room, identify your file, and get out. That's it. And if something goes wrong, then you do what I taught you in the motel. Point, shoot, survive. They ran through scenarios until Elena's head was spinning. By the time they finished, it was past midnight and exhaustion was catching up with all of them. Kira and Marcus took the other bedroom. Elena started toward hers, but Adrian caught her arm. Wait. She turned. What you did today, he said quietly. At the motel. That took guts. It took terror. Same thing. He hesitated, then added, You're not what I expected. What did you expect? Someone who'd break. Most people would have. I came close. But you didn't. His hand was still on her arm, warm through the fabric of her shirt. That matters. Elena looked at him, this stranger who'd become the center of her world in 4 impossible days. This man carrying violence and secrets and a child he'd never asked for. I'm scared, she admitted. Good. Fear keeps you sharp. I'm scared of more than Victor. What else? She almost said it, almost admitted that she was terrified of what she was starting to feel, of how natural it felt to be standing this close to him, of how much she'd started to trust him despite every rational reason not to. Instead, she said, I'm scared I won't recognize myself when this is over. Adrian's expression softened. You'll recognize yourself. You'll just know what you're capable of. Is that better or worse? Depends on what you do with it. He released her arm and stepped back. The distance felt like miles. Get some rest, he said. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. Elena nodded and climbed the stairs to her room. Inside, she lay in the darkness, listening to the old house settle around her. Tomorrow they'd raid the clinic. Tomorrow they'd confront the evidence of Victor's manipulation. Tomorrow she'd step deeper into a world she'd never wanted to be part of. But tonight, in the quiet, she let herself acknowledge the truth she'd been avoiding. She didn't want to go back to her old life. Not to David. Not to the carefully constructed future she'd been building. She wanted this. The danger. The purpose. The feeling of being alive in a way she'd never been before. And she wanted Adrian. Not because he'd saved her. Not because he was the father of her child. But because when she looked at him, she saw someone who understood what it meant to live at the edge of control and chaos. Someone like her. The realization should have terrified her. Instead, it felt like the first honest thing she'd acknowledged in years. Downstairs, she heard movement. Adrian, probably, doing one last security check. The man never stopped, never let his guard down. Elena wondered what it would take to make him feel safe. She wondered if anyone ever had. Sleep came eventually, fitful and shallow, filled with dreams of gunfire and explosions, and a man's eyes going wide when her bullet found its mark. When she woke, it was still dark. The clock read 4:47 a.m. She found Adrian in the kitchen, coffee already brewing, maps spread across the table. Couldn't sleep? She asked. Sleep's overrated. He poured her a cup without asking. We move in 14 hours. I wanted to go over the plan one more time. Elena sat down across from him. What's our biggest risk? Besides everything? He traced a route on the blueprint with his finger. The security system is networked. If we trip one sensor, the whole building locks down. We'll have maybe 3 minutes to complete the objective and extract. That's not a lot of time. It's enough. If we're fast. And if we're not, then we improvise. Marcus appeared in the doorway, looking rumpled. Please tell me that's coffee. Help yourself. Adrian didn't look up from the maps. Where's Kira? Checking perimeter. She'll be back in 10. They spent the morning running through the plan until Elena could recite it in her sleep. Kira drilled her on hand signals and basic tactical movement. Marcus made sure all the equipment was functional. By afternoon, Elena was wired on adrenaline and caffeine, her nerves stretched thin. You need to eat, Adrian said, appearing with a plate of something that might have been food. I'm not hungry. Eat anyway. You'll need the energy. She forced down half the plate before her stomach rebelled. Adrian watched her with concern that he didn't bother hiding anymore. We can call it off, he said quietly. You don't have to do this. Yes, I do. Elena, I need to see it, the proof. I need to know that what you told me is real. She met his eyes. I need to understand what was done to me. He nodded slowly. All right, but the second it goes wrong, I run. I know. The hours crawled by. At 6 p.m., they started gearing up. Kira gave Elena a vest, lightweight but bulletproof. Marcus checked everyone's comms. Adrian did a final weapons check. Elena stared at the gun in her hand, smaller than the one from the motel, easier to handle. She hoped she wouldn't need it. They left at 7:30, driving in silence toward the city. The clinic was in a medical complex on the north side, surrounded by other buildings, public enough to seem safe, isolated enough to hide secrets. Last chance, Adrian said as they pulled into position 3 blocks away. You can stay in the car. I'm going. Then stay close. Stay quiet, and trust me. I do. The words surprised them both. They moved as a unit, slipping through the complex's parking structure toward the clinic's service entrance. Marcus disabled the lock. Kira went in first, sweeping for immediate threats. All clear. Inside, the clinic was dark and quiet. Emergency lighting cast everything in red. They moved through hallways Elena recognized from her visits, the waiting room where she'd filled out forms, the consultation office where she'd made her choice. Records are on the third floor, Marcus whispered, checking his tablet. Northeast corner. They took the stairs, moving in formation exactly as they'd practiced. Elena's heart was hammering so hard she was sure someone would hear it. Third floor, empty hallway, locked door. Marcus worked on it while the rest of them kept watch. 30 seconds, a minute. Come on, Kira muttered. The lock clicked. They were in. The records room was rows and rows of filing cabinets, everything meticulously organized. Pre-digital system, harder to hack, easier to hide. We've got 2 minutes, Adrian said. Find your file. Grab everything. Go. Elena moved down the rows, searching. Carter. There. She pulled the file, her hand shaking. Inside were medical forms, consent documents, genetic screening results. And there, stapled to the back, a photograph of Adrian, younger, in uniform, with a notation in the margin, approved by VO for client match, Victor Osborne. I've got it, Elena breathed. Good. Let's move. The lights came on, bright, sudden, blinding. Well, a voice said from the doorway, this is disappointing. Elena's blood turned to ice. Victor Osborne stood at the entrance, flanked by 6 armed men, and he was smiling. Adrian's gun was up before Victor finished speaking, but 6 weapons were already trained on them from multiple angles. The math was simple and brutal. They were outgunned, outmaneuvered, and trapped. I wouldn't, Victor said pleasantly. He was older than Elena had expected, maybe 60, with silver hair and the kind of expensive suit that screamed boardroom more than criminal empire. You shoot me. My men shoot her. Nobody wins. Adrian's jaw clenched, but he didn't lower his weapon. How did you know? That you'd come here? Please, I've known you since you were 16 years old, Adrian. Your father tried to teach you strategy, but you never listened. You're predictable, emotional. You always go for the throat when you should go for the knees. Victor stepped into the room, hands clasped behind his back like he was touring a museum. The second I leaked your genetic material to that girl, I knew exactly how this would play out. That girl has a name, Elena said, her voice steadier than she felt. Victor's eyes slid to her, cold and assessing. Elena Carter, 29, veterinarian, unremarkable in every way except for the life you're carrying. How does it feel knowing you're just an incubator for someone else's agenda? Better than being a manipulative bastard who has to engineer heirs because nobody would choose to follow him. The smile dropped from Victor's face. One of his men shifted, hand tightening on his weapon. Careful, Victor said softly. You're only alive because that child is worth more to me intact. But I can make your remaining months very uncomfortable. Touch her and you die. Adrian's voice was flat, final. I don't care how many guns you have. You hurt her. I will burn everything you've built to the ground and dance in the ashes. Such drama. Your father would be ashamed. Victor gestured to his men. Disarm them. What happened next was chaos. Marcus moved first, diving left and taking out one guard with a shot that echoed like thunder in the confined space. Kira went right, her knife flashing as she closed the distance to another guard. Adrian fired twice, dropped one man, then threw himself in front of Elena as return fire shredded the air where they'd been standing. Move, he shouted, pushing her toward the back exit. Elena ran, the file clutched against her chest, gunfire exploding behind her, her feet barely touching the ground. She hit the door at full speed and it flew open into a stairwell. Down. She had to go down. Behind her someone was shouting, more gunfire, the sound of bodies hitting the floor. She took the stairs 2 at a time, her breath coming in gasps, the vest heavy across her chest. Second floor, first floor, the exit was right there. A hand grabbed her arm and yanked her backward. Elena screamed, twisting, the file flying from her grip. One of Victor's men, young, buzz-cut, dead-eyed, had her by the wrist, pulling her back toward the stairs. Nice and easy, he said. Boss wants you alive, but he didn't say undamaged. Elena did what Adrian had taught her. She dropped her weight, making herself heavy, then drove her elbow back into the man's ribs. He grunted but didn't let go. She tried again, aiming for his throat this time. He backhanded her. The world exploded in stars and pain. Elena hit the wall, tasting blood, her vision swimming. The man was reaching for her again when a gunshot cracked and he jerked backward, a red bloom spreading across his chest. Kira stood at the top of the stairs, smoking weapon in hand. You good? She called down. Elena nodded, not trusting her voice. Then grab the file and move. We've got maybe 30 seconds before this place is crawling with more of them. Elena scooped up the scattered papers, shoving them back into the folder with shaking hands. Kira was already moving, leading her through the ground floor toward the service exit they'd used to enter. Outside, the night air hit Elena's face like cold water. They ran across the parking lot to where Marcus had the car waiting, engine running. "Where's Adrian?" Marcus demanded as they dove into the back seat. "Still inside," Kira said. "He was covering our exit. We're not leaving without him. We don't have a choice." A figure burst from the clinic's main entrance, running full tilt. Adrian. Blood on his face, limping slightly, but alive. He threw himself into the passenger seat. "Drive!" Marcus floored it. They were 3 blocks away when the clinic exploded. Not a small explosion, a massive fireball that lit up the night sky, glass and debris raining down across the medical complex. The shockwave hit the car, rocking it sideways. Jesus Christ! Marcus wrestled with the wheel, keeping them on the road. "What the hell did you do?" "Gas line," Adrian said, breathing hard. "Figured if we couldn't have the evidence, neither could Victor." "The evidence is right here." Elena held up the file, pages crumpled but intact. "I got it." Adrian turned to look at her, his expression shifting from grim to something like relief. "You're hurt." She touched her face where the guard had hit her. Her fingers came away bloody. "I'm fine." "You're not fine. He hit you. And Kira shot him. I'm alive. That's what matters." In the rearview mirror, she could see flames consuming the clinic. Fire trucks were already responding, sirens wailing. They'd be looking for survivors, for witnesses, for explanations. "Did everyone get out?" Elena asked. "Victor's men." "Some of them." Adrian's voice was hard. "Not all." She thought about the guard who'd grabbed her. The one Kira had shot. Young enough to be someone's son. Dead now because he'd chosen the wrong employer. Or maybe because she'd been dragged into a war that killed everyone it touched. "Victor wasn't in the building when it went up," Kira said, checking her own injuries. A gash across her forearm, already bandaged. "I saw him exit before Adrian set the charge." Of course he did. Adrian was checking his weapon, reloading with automatic precision despite the blood streaming from a cut above his eye. He's too smart to get caught in his own trap. But now he knows we have the file. He'll escalate. "How much worse can it get?" Elena asked. The look Adrian gave her was answer enough. They drove for over an hour, switching cars twice, before finally pulling up to another safe house. This one further north, smaller, less obvious than the last. A cabin in the woods that looked abandoned from the outside but was clearly maintained for exactly this purpose. Inside, Marcus immediately set up a secure perimeter while Kira started treating injuries. Elena sat at the kitchen table, the file spread in front of her, forcing herself to read through the evidence of her own manipulation. Medical records showing her fertility treatments, genetic screening results, and the contract, signed by Victor Osborne and the clinic director, detailing exactly how Elena Carter would be selected, prepared, and impregnated with Adrian Varelli's genetic material. "They monitored me for 6 months before I even made the decision," she said quietly, her finger tracing the dates. "They knew I'd been researching donor insemination. They knew I was thinking about single motherhood. They engineered the whole thing." Adrian sat down across from her, his cut now bandaged, exhaustion written in every line of his face. "They chose you because you fit a profile. Stable, professional, no major connections to organized crime. Someone who'd make a believable mother and wouldn't ask too many questions. Until you crashed my wedding. Until I found out what they'd done and realized you were in danger." He pulled one of the documents closer, studying it. "This contract is detailed. Times, dates, payments. Victor didn't just order this. He micromanaged it." "Why go to all this trouble?" Elena pushed back from the table, her head pounding. "He could have just killed you, taken over your father's business. Why create a child?" "Because killing me doesn't legitimize his claim. My father's will is ironclad. Everything goes to me, with specific provisions if I die. But if there's a biological heir, someone Victor can control from birth, he can contest the will, claim guardianship, use the child to access everything my father built. So I was just a womb for hire." "You were a pawn." Adrian's voice softened. I'm sorry. If I'd known sooner. You would have what? Stopped me from getting pregnant? This child exists because I chose to have them. Victor manipulated the how, but the wanting was mine. The words hung between them. Elena looked at the man across from her, this stranger who'd become the most important person in her world in less than a week. The biological father of her child. The reason she was alive. The reason she was in danger. What happens now? She asked. We use this. Adrian tapped the file. This is proof of everything. Genetic manipulation, conspiracy. Victor's whole operation. We take it to the FBI, to federal prosecutors, to anyone who'll listen. You think they'll care? This is, what, fertility fraud? How does that bring down a criminal empire? It's not about the fraud. It's about what the fraud proves, that Victor has been using legitimate medical facilities to further criminal enterprise. Money laundering, racketeering. Once we open that door, everything else follows. Kira appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. We've got a problem. What kind of problem? The kind where Victor just went on local news claiming you kidnapped Elena from her wedding. There's footage from the chapel. Witnesses. He's spinning this as a rescue operation gone wrong. Marcus turned his laptop so they could see. On screen, a news anchor was showing grainy cell phone footage from the wedding, armed men storming the chapel, Elena being dragged away by Adrian. The chyron read, "Local woman missing after wedding day, abduction." "Son of a bitch," Adrian muttered. The anchor continued. Authorities are searching for Elena Carter, who was forcibly taken from her wedding ceremony 6 days ago. Private security consultant Victor Osborne, who was attending the wedding, attempted to intervene, but the abductors escaped. Ms. Carter's fiancé, David Mitchell, is asking anyone with information to please come forward. The screen cut to David, looking haggard and desperate. "Elena, if you can see this, please, just let us know you're okay. Whatever they told you, whatever they threatened, we can work it out. Just come home." Elena felt something crack in her chest. "He thinks I've been brainwashed," she said. "He thinks you've been kidnapped," Kira corrected, "which, technically, you were. I chose to stay." "Does he know that?" No, David didn't know anything. Her family didn't know. Everyone she'd ever cared about thought she was being held against her will. "We need to get ahead of this," Marcus said. "If the media thinks you're a victim, going public with the file won't work. They'll think it's coerced testimony." "So what do we do?" Elena asked. Adrian was quiet for a long moment, staring at the news footage. Finally, he said, "You go public. Tell your story. Show them the evidence. Make Victor the villain, not me. That'll put a target on my back. The target's already there. At least this way you control the narrative. Victor will kill me before I get within 50 feet of a camera." "Not if we do it right." Adrian pulled up a map on his phone, marking locations. "We leak word that you're going to give a statement at the downtown FBI office. Victor will move his people into position to intercept. But you won't be there. You'll be at a secondary location, live streaming to every major network simultaneously." "That's insane," Kira said. "It's the only play we have." Adrian looked at Elena. "But it's your choice. You don't owe me this." Elena thought about David's face on the news, about her mother probably crying herself to sleep every night, about the life she'd left behind. Then she thought about the file in front of her, about Victor Osborne using her body as a tool, about the child growing inside her who deserved better than to be a pawn. "I'll do it," she said. "When?" "Tomorrow. We set up the decoy, arrange the live stream, and you tell the truth." "And if Victor gets through anyway?" Adrian's hand found hers across the table. "He won't. I promise you that." It was a promise he had no business making. They both knew it, but Elena believed him anyway. They spent the rest of the night preparing. Marcus set up the technical infrastructure for the live stream. Kira coordinated with contacts in law enforcement, people who owed Adrian favors, who could be trusted to provide backup without leaking their location. Elena worked on her statement, writing, rewriting, trying to find words that would make people understand what had been done to her without sounding like a victim or a lunatic. Adrian sat with her through it, offering suggestions, pointing out weak spots in her argument. "Don't apologize," he said when she read him the third draft. "You didn't do anything wrong. Victor did. I'm pregnant with your child without your consent. That's Victor's crime, not yours. You chose to become a mother. He weaponized that choice. There's a difference. Elena looked at him. Do you regret it? Finding out about the baby. He was quiet for so long she thought he wouldn't answer. Then he said, I regret how it happened. I regret that you were used. But the child? He met her eyes. No, I don't regret that. Something warm unfurled in Elena's chest. Something dangerous. What happens after? She asked. After we take down Victor. After the baby comes. What happens to us? I don't know. That's not an answer. It's the only one I have. He leaned back in his chair, exhaustion making him look older. I've spent the last decade trying to escape my father's shadow, trying to build a life that wasn't defined by violence. And then you showed up, and suddenly I'm right back in the middle of it. I didn't ask for this either. I know, but here we are. Here we are, Elena echoed. The moment stretched between them, heavy with things neither of them knew how to say. Finally, Adrian stood. You should sleep. Tomorrow's going to be brutal. I know. Elena didn't move. Adrian? He paused at the door. Thank you for not leaving me to figure this out alone. I couldn't do that even if I wanted to. Why? He looked at her, something unguarded in his expression. Because you matter. The baby matters, and I'm done running from things that matter. He left before she could respond. Elena sat alone in the kitchen, the statement in front of her, her hand drifting to her stomach. 10 weeks. The baby was the size of a strawberry now, heart beating, limbs forming, completely unaware of the war being fought over their existence. She wondered what kind of life they'd have, if they'd grow up knowing their father, if Elena would survive long enough to see them born, if any of them would make it out of this intact. Morning came too fast. Elena woke to find the cabin in organized chaos. Marcus testing equipment, Kira checking weapons. Adrian on the phone, his voice low and urgent. They moved out at 9 a.m., splitting into 2 vehicles. Kira and Marcus would set up the decoy at the FBI building downtown. Adrian and Elena would go to the secondary location, a small studio space in a building owned by one of Adrian's few remaining legitimate business contacts. The drive was tense, silent. Elena kept running through her statement in her head, but the words kept jumbling. You'll be fine, Adrian said, reading her anxiety. Just tell the truth. The truth is insane. The evidence backs it up. They pulled into an underground garage, took a service elevator to the 3rd floor. The studio was small but professional. Camera equipment, lights, a simple backdrop. A woman was waiting for them. Mid-40s, red hair pulled back, the kind of confidence that suggested she'd done this 1,000 times. You must be Elena, she said, offering her hand. I'm Sarah Brennan, investigative journalist. Adrian called me. You trust her? Elena asked Adrian. With my life. She's been trying to expose Victor for years. This is her chance. Sarah was already setting up, adjusting lights, testing camera angles. We go live in 30 minutes. Major networks are being notified now. Once we start broadcasting, there's no going back. Elena's stomach twisted. What if nobody believes me? They'll believe the evidence. The file you have, that's dynamite. Combined with your testimony and my reporting, Victor's done. He won't go down without a fight. Good thing you brought backup, Sarah nodded to Adrian. Speaking of which, you should be on camera too. Confirm her story. Show you're not the villain the media's making you out to be. No. Adrian's voice was firm. This is her story. I'm not stealing her moment. You're part of the story whether you like it or not. Then I'll be part of it from off camera. They didn't have time to argue. 20 minutes, 15. Elena sat in the chair Sarah indicated, a makeup artist appearing out of nowhere to touch up the bruise on her face, make her look less like a kidnapping victim and more like a credible witness. You're shaking, the makeup artist said gently. I'm terrified. That's okay. Scared looks real. Real is good. 10 minutes. Adrian crouched beside Elena's chair, his hand covering hers. You don't have to do this. We can find another way. There is no other way. You said it yourself. This is the only play we have. I could be wrong. You're not. He squeezed her hand once, then stood. I'll be right here, the whole time. 5 minutes. Sarah was doing final checks, talking to someone on her phone, confirming that major networks were ready to pick up the feed. "We're live in 60 seconds, she called. "Elena, you ready?" "No." "Yes." "Remember, speak clearly, make eye contact with the camera. Don't rush, take your time." 30 seconds. Elena could see herself in the monitor, pale, bruised, but steady. She looked like someone who'd survived something. Maybe that would be enough. "We're live in 3, 2. Sarah pointed at Elena. The red light on the camera turned on. "My name is Elena Carter," Elena said, her voice steady despite the fear clawing at her throat. "6 days ago, I was taken for my wedding. The media is calling it an abduction. They're calling the man who took me a criminal. But they're wrong. I wasn't kidnapped. I was rescued." She held up the file, pages visible to the camera. "What I'm holding is proof of a conspiracy. Proof that a man named Victor Osborne used a fertility clinic to manipulate my pregnancy, to create a biological heir he could control, to further his criminal enterprise. I didn't know this when I chose to have a child. I didn't know my body was being used as a weapon." Her voice cracked slightly, but she pushed through. "The man who took me from my wedding is Adrian Varelli. He's the biological father of my child, not because we had a relationship, but because Victor Osborne stole his genetic material and used it without consent. Adrian saved my life, multiple times. And I'm here today to tell the truth about what was done to both of us." She looked directly at the camera. "I know my family is watching. I know David is watching. I'm sorry for the pain I've caused, but I need you to understand, I'm not a victim. I'm a survivor. And I'm going to make sure Victor Osborne pays for what he's done." She took a breath, then continued, walking through the evidence piece by piece, the contract, the genetic records, the timeline showing Victor's involvement from the beginning. 20 minutes. 30. Elena laid it all out, Sarah interjecting with questions that pushed the story forward, that made the conspiracy clear. And then, just as Elena was reaching the conclusion of her statement, all the lights went out. "What?" Sarah started. Gunfire shattered the windows. Adrian was moving before the glass hit the floor, pulling Elena from the chair, pushing her toward the back exit. "Go! Now! The broadcast is done. You said what you needed to say. Now move!" More gunfire. The studio was being torn apart, bullets punching through walls, equipment exploding. They hit the back hallway at a run. Behind them, Elena could hear shouting, boots on stairs. Victor's men had found them. "This way," Adrian said, leading her toward a service stairwell. They took it down, floor after floor, the sounds of pursuit echoing above them. Ground floor. A door leading to an alley. Adrian checked it first, weapon drawn, then pulled Elena through. A car was waiting. Marcus at the wheel. "Get in!" They dove into the back seat just as Victor's men burst from the building. Marcus floored it, tires screaming as they shot out of the alley. Gunfire chased them. The rear window exploded. Elena screamed, covering her head. "Stay down!" Adrian had his weapon out the window, returning fire. One of the pursuing vehicles swerved, crashed into a parked car. But there were more. Always more. Marcus was driving like a man possessed, cutting through traffic, running lights, taking corners that made the car tilt on 2 wheels. "Where's Kira?" Adrian demanded. "FBI building, still running the decoy. She's fine. We need to regroup. Can't. Victor's got the whole city locked down. Every exit covered. We're pinned." Elena looked out the shattered rear window. 3 vehicles behind them, maybe 4. Men with guns leaning out windows. They weren't going to outrun this. "Adrian," she said quietly. "I know." "What do we do?" He met her eyes in the rear-view mirror. "We end it. Tonight." "How?" "We give Victor what he wants." "What does that mean?" Adrian's smile was cold and dangerous. "It means we stop running, and we take the fight to him." Marcus took a hard right down an alley barely wide enough for the car, scraping paint off both sides as they squeezed through. The pursuing vehicles couldn't follow. Too wide, too slow to react. They gained maybe 30 seconds. "Where are we going?" Elena asked, her voice tight. "The warehouse district," Adrian said, already on his phone. "Kira, we need extraction. South Harbor, Pier 17. How fast can you get there?" Elena couldn't hear Kira's response, but Adrian's expression darkened. "Then meet us at the secondary location. We'll hold until you arrive." He hung up. She's 20 minutes out. We need to disappear until then. Disappear where? Marcus swerved around a delivery truck, narrowly missing a pedestrian. They've got eyes everywhere. Traffic cams, street cameras, probably half the cops on their payroll. Then we go somewhere without cameras. Adrian pointed ahead. The old manufacturing plant on Dock Street. It's been abandoned for years. No surveillance, multiple exits, easy to defend. Also easy to trap us in. You have a better idea? Marcus didn't answer, which was answer enough. He took the next left, heading toward the waterfront where the city's industrial past slowly rotted into the harbor. The manufacturing plant loomed ahead, 5 stories of broken windows and rusted metal, surrounded by a chain-link fence that had more holes than links. Marcus crashed through what remained of the front gate and drove straight into the loading bay. They were out of the car before the engine died, moving with practiced efficiency. Adrian swept the interior, massive, echoing, filled with defunct machinery and shadows that stretched like pools of ink. Upstairs, he said. High ground, multiple sight lines. We can see them coming. They climbed a metal staircase that groaned under their weight, rust flaking with every step. The second floor was marginally better, old offices with walls that had mostly crumbled, offering views in all directions. Elena moved to one of the broken windows, looking out over the approach. In the distance, she could see headlights, multiple vehicles moving in formation. They're here, she said. Adrian was beside her in a second, weapon in hand. How many? 4 cars that I can see, maybe more behind them. Marcus, what's our ammunition situation? Marcus was already checking. 2 full mags each, plus whatever's in the chamber. Not enough for a sustained firefight. Then we don't give them one. We hold long enough for Kira to arrive, then we extract. Adrian looked at Elena. You stay away from the windows, center of the room. If shooting starts, you get down and stay down. I can help. You help by staying alive. His voice was hard. That's your job right now. Survive. The first vehicle pulled into the lot below. Then the second, third, fourth. Men poured out, at least 20 of them, all armed, moving with military precision. They brought an army, Marcus muttered. Good. Adrian's smile was dangerous. Armies make mistakes. A voice echoed up from below, amplified by a megaphone. Adrian Varelli, you're surrounded. Send the girl out and we'll let you walk away. Adrian leaned out the window. Victor too scared to come himself? Mr. Osborne is watching from a safe distance. He sends his regards. Tell him he's a coward who hides behind other people's violence. Last chance. Send the girl out or we come in shooting. Adrian pulled back from the window, checking his weapon. Marcus, take the east side. I've got west. Crossfire pattern. Make every shot count. What about me? Elena asked. You pray this works. The first shots came without warning, a barrage that shattered what remained of the windows, bullets punching through rotted walls and ricocheting off metal machinery. Elena hit the floor, hands over her head, her heart hammering so hard she thought her ribs would crack. Adrian and Marcus returned fire in controlled bursts, picking targets, making each bullet matter. Elena heard shouting from below, someone screaming. 2 down, Marcus called. They're spreading out, trying to flank us. Let them try, Adrian fired again. They don't know the layout, we do. But there were too many. Even Elena could see that. 20 men against 2, and ammunition running low. A figure appeared in the eastern doorway, one of Victor's men, weapon raised. Marcus spun and fired, but the chamber clicked empty. Reloading, he shouted, dropping behind cover. The man fired. Bullets stitched across the floor, kicking up concrete dust. Elena saw him advancing, saw Marcus fumbling with the magazine, saw the moment when she realized no one was going to stop this. She pulled the gun Adrian had given her, the one she'd carried since the motel, and she fired. The shot went wide, but close enough to make the man duck. Marcus got his weapon loaded and finished what Elena started. 2 shots, center mass, the man dropped. Nice distraction, Marcus said. Elena's hands were shaking so badly she nearly dropped the gun. I missed. You bought me time. Same thing. More gunfire from below. The sound of boots on stairs. They were coming up. Multiple teams, coordinated assault. Adrian was on his phone again. Kira, we're pinned. If you've got anything, now would be good. Whatever Kira said made him swear. What? Elena asked. She's still 15 minutes out. We don't have 15 minutes. As if to prove his point, an explosion rocked the western stairwell. Someone had thrown a grenade. The blast took out part of the wall, fire licking at old insulation. "They're trying to smoke us out," Marcus said, "or burn us alive." Adrian was already moving, pulling Elena to her feet. "We need to relocate. Now." They ran through the maze of offices, Adrian leading, Marcus covering their rear. Behind them, Elena could hear Victor's men advancing, calling coordinates, moving like the professionals they were. Another stairwell, this one on the north side. They took it up instead of down, third floor, then fourth. Buying height, buying time. "Where are we going?" Elena gasped, her lungs burning. "Roof, it's our only option. We'll be trapped up there." "We're already trapped. At least up there we can see them coming." The roof access was a rusted door that Adrian kicked open. They emerged into cold night air, the harbor stretching out below them, city lights glittering in the distance. Beautiful. Deadly. Marcus immediately moved to the roof's edge, checking sight lines. "We've got maybe 2 minutes before they figure out we came up here." "Then we use those 2 minutes." Adrian was on his phone again, but this time he wasn't calling Kira. "This is Adrian Varelli. I need to speak to Victor Osborne now." He put it on speaker. Victor's voice crackled through after a moment. "Adrian, still alive. I'm almost impressed." "Call off your men." "Why would I do that?" "Because Elena's broadcast went out to every major network in the country. By now, the FBI has seen the evidence. Federal prosecutors are probably already drawing up indictments. You've lost, Victor. The only question is how many more people die before you accept it. That broadcast proves nothing. You could have fabricated those documents, coerced her testimony. The media loves a conspiracy, but courts need evidence. We have evidence. DNA records, financial transactions, the contract you signed with Rothman. It's over." There was a pause. Then Victor laughed, a sound like breaking glass. "You still don't understand, do you? This was never about the child, not really. The pregnancy was just bait, a way to draw you out of hiding, to make you vulnerable. You spent a decade avoiding me, Adrian. I needed something that would make you care enough to engage." Elena felt ice slide down her spine. "You're saying this whole thing, the clinic, the pregnancy, everything, was just to get to Adrian?" Finally, the vessel speaks. Victor's voice was pleasant, conversational. "Yes, my dear, you were always expendable. Adrian was the prize. His father's empire, his connections, his legitimacy, that's what I needed. And now that he's exposed, now that he's committed crimes in full view of law enforcement, he's mine. No more hiding behind discharged military status, no more pretending he's better than his father's legacy." Adrian's expression had gone completely flat. Dangerous. "You made a mistake," he said quietly. "Did I? You hurt her. You used her. That's not something I forgive. Empty threats from a desperate man. Not a threat. A promise." Adrian hung up. For a moment no one moved. Then Marcus said, "Well, that was informative. Also terrifying. Mostly terrifying." "He's right about one thing," Adrian said, checking his remaining ammunition. "I am desperate. And desperate people are unpredictable." "What are you thinking?" Elena asked, though part of her didn't want to know. "I'm thinking Victor's biggest weakness is his ego. He needs control, needs to be the one pulling the strings, so we give him what he wants." "Meaning?" "Meaning I surrender." "Absolutely not," Marcus and Elena said simultaneously. "It's the only way to draw him out. He won't come here himself, too risky. But if I offer to trade myself for Elena's safety, if I make it public enough that he can't refuse without looking weak, he'll kill you the second he has you," Elena interrupted. "Probably. Unless I kill him first." "That's not a plan. That's suicide." "It's a plan if it works." "And if it doesn't?" Adrian looked at her, something raw and unguarded in his expression. "Then at least you'll be safe. You and the baby." Elena wanted to scream, to hit him, to make him understand that she wasn't some objective to be secured, wasn't a mission to be completed. Instead, she said, "I didn't survive the last week just to watch you throw your life away. You survived because I made sure you did. Now I'm making sure you keep surviving. By dying. By ending this." He moved to the roof's edge, looking down at Victor's men positioned below. "Marcus, when Kira arrives, You get Elena out, no matter what. Understand? Adrian, that's an order. Marcus's jaw clenched, but he nodded. Adrian turned to Elena. When this is over, when Victor's gone, you go back to your life. Raise the baby somewhere safe, somewhere far from all this. What about you? I won't be part of that life. Why not? Because look at me, Elena. Look at what I am, what I do. You deserve better than... She kissed him. It wasn't planned, wasn't thought through. She just closed the distance between them and pressed her lips to his, silencing whatever self-sacrificing bullshit he was about to say. For a moment, he went rigid with surprise. Then his hand came up to cup her face and he kissed her back with an intensity that made her knees weak. When they broke apart, both breathing hard, Elena said, "You don't get to decide what I deserve. I do, and I deserve the truth. Do you care about me?" That's not, "Do you care about me? Yes or no?" Yes. The word came out rough, unwilling. I care. Then stop trying to save me by destroying yourself. We're in this together. We finish it together. You don't understand what you're asking. I understand perfectly. You're scared of this, of us, of what it means to let someone matter. Well, guess what? I'm terrified too. But I'm done running from things that scare me. Adrian stared at her, something shifting in his expression, something that looked almost like hope. Then gunfire erupted from the stairwell, and the moment shattered. Victor's men were on the roof, spreading out, weapons raised, 6 of them at least, with more coming. Down! Adrian pulled Elena behind an old ventilation unit, returning fire. Marcus was already shooting, holding the eastern approach. The firefight was brutal in close quarters. Bullets ricocheted off metal, the sound deafening. Elena stayed low, her gun in hand, watching for threats. One of Victor's men flanked wide, trying to get around Marcus's position. Elena saw him, raised her weapon, fired twice. He went down. 3 down, Marcus called. But they keep coming. How many more? Adrian demanded. Too many. An explosion rocked the roof. Another grenade, this one landing close enough to throw Elena backward. Her ears rang. Everything was smoke and noise and chaos. Adrian was pulling her upright, checking for injuries. His mouth was moving, but Elena couldn't hear him over the ringing in her ears. Then she saw it, movement behind Adrian, a figure emerging from the smoke, weapon raised, aiming at his back. Elena didn't think, just raised her gun and fired. The shot took the man in the shoulder. Not fatal, but enough to spin him around, his weapon discharging into the air. Adrian finished it, 2 shots that dropped the man permanently. Thanks, he said. Elena's hands were shaking. She'd just killed someone, not wounded, killed. She was going to be sick. Later, Adrian said, reading her expression. You fall apart later. Right now, we survive. More gunfire. Marcus shouted something. The world was chaos and violence, and Elena was standing in the middle of it with a gun in her hand and blood on her conscience. Then, impossibly, she heard the most beautiful sound in the world. A helicopter. It appeared over the harbor, running lights off, moving fast and low. As Elena watched, it banked hard and came straight for the building. That's Kira, Marcus said, actually smiling. She brought the cavalry. The helicopter swept over the roof, and Elena saw Kira in the open door, a rifle in her hands. She fired in controlled bursts, driving Victor's men back toward the stairwell. The helicopter couldn't land. The roof was too cluttered with debris and equipment, but it hovered close enough to deploy a rope ladder. Go! Adrian shoved Elena toward it. Climb! What about you? Right behind you, move! Elena grabbed the ladder and started climbing, her arms burning, wind from the rotors whipping her hair. Below her, Adrian and Marcus were laying down covering fire, backing toward the ladder. Someone shot at the helicopter. Bullets punched through the fuselage. The pilot fought to keep it steady. Elena hauled herself into the cabin, Kira grabbing her arm and pulling her fully inside. Where are they? Marcus was on the ladder now, climbing fast. Adrian was at the bottom, still firing at Victor's men who were pouring onto the roof. Adrian, come on! Marcus shouted. Adrian grabbed the ladder with one hand, weapon in the other, and started climbing. He was 3 rungs up when someone shot him. Elena saw it happen. The impact, Adrian's body jerking, his hand slipping from the ladder. No! She lunged forward, but Kira held her back. Adrian caught himself with his other hand held on despite the blood blooming across his shoulder. He climbed. One rung, two. Marcus reached down and hauled him the rest of the way into the helicopter. Go! Kira shouted to the pilot. Get us out of here! The helicopter banked hard and rose, leaving the roof and Victor's men behind. Below, Elena could see the manufacturing plant shrinking, the city spreading out in all directions. They'd made it. They were alive. Adrian was bleeding out on the helicopter floor. Medical kit, Kira was already saying, moving with practiced efficiency. Elena, I need you to put pressure on the wound. Elena's hands found the injury, high on Adrian's left shoulder, blood pulsing with each heartbeat. She pressed down hard and Adrian's eyes snapped open, his face contorted with pain. Stay with me, she said. You don't get to die after all that. Wasn't planning on it, he managed through gritted teeth. Good. Because we're not done. You hear me? We're not done. Kira was working fast, packing the wound, getting the bleeding under control. Marcus was on the radio, coordinating with someone. Hospital, maybe. Or a safe location where they could properly treat Adrian. Bullet went through, Kira said. That's good. No fragments to dig out. But he's lost a lot of blood. How long until we land? Elena asked. 15 minutes to the safe house. We've got a medic waiting. 15 minutes. An eternity. Elena kept pressure on the wound, her hands slick with blood, watching Adrian's face for signs of consciousness. His eyes kept drifting closed. Stay awake, she commanded. Talk to me. About anything. About what? I don't know. Your childhood, your favorite food, anything. My childhood was violent and my father was a criminal. Great start. Keep going. I joined the military to escape, spent 8 years in special ops, got discharged after a mission went wrong. His voice was getting weaker. Thought I could build a normal life. Clearly that didn't work out. You saved my life multiple times. I'd say that worked out fine. You got shot at repeatedly. And I'm still alive. Because of you. His hand found hers, gripping tight despite the pain. What happens now? Now we land. Get you patched up. And then we finish what we started. Victor's still out there. I know. But your broadcast worked. The evidence is public. Law enforcement is already moving. He's cornered. Cornered animals are dangerous. So are mothers protecting their children. Adrian's eyes focused on her, something like pride in them. You've changed. You think? The woman at the wedding would have never shot someone, would have never climbed into a helicopter under fire. The woman at the wedding didn't know what she was capable of. And now? Now I know exactly what I'm capable of. And it's more than I ever imagined. The helicopter started descending. Through the window, Elena could see a building, nondescript, industrial, the kind of place that didn't draw attention. They landed on the roof, and immediately people were rushing forward. A medic, more of Adrian's people, all moving with coordinated efficiency. Adrian was lifted onto a stretcher. The medic was already working, checking vitals, setting up an IV. He's stable, the medic said, but he needs proper surgery. This is just field medicine. Do what you can, Kira said. We can't risk a hospital. Victor has people everywhere. They carried Adrian inside, down into a space that had been converted into a medical bay. Improvised but functional. Elena tried to follow, but Marcus stopped her. Let them work. You'll just be in the way. You need to rest. You've been running for days. You're pregnant. You need to take care of yourself. He was right, but Elena didn't want to admit it. She let Marcus lead her to another room, clean, quiet, a bed that looked impossibly soft after sleeping in cars and safe houses. I'll let you know the second there's news, Marcus promised. Then he was gone, and Elena was alone. She sat on the edge of the bed, staring at her hands, still covered in Adrian's blood. She should wash them, should shower, should do something other than sit here replaying the moment when he was shot. But she couldn't move. The adrenaline was wearing off and everything hurt. Her body, her head, her chest, where fear had taken up permanent residence. She'd killed someone tonight, maybe more than one. She'd fired her weapon, seen people fall, watched life leave their eyes. And tomorrow she'd wake up and do it again if that's what it took to survive. When had she become this person? The answer came immediately. She'd always been this person. She just hadn't known it. Elena finally moved to the bathroom, stripping off her blood-stained clothes, stepping into a shower that ran red before finally running clear. She stood under the spray until the water went cold, washing away the physical evidence of violence even though she knew the internal scars would take longer. When she emerged, clean clothes were waiting. Someone had anticipated her needs. She dressed mechanically, then lay down on the bed. She didn't think she'd sleep. She was unconscious in seconds. Elena woke to someone shaking her shoulder gently. She jerked upright, reaching for a weapon that wasn't there. "Easy," Kira said, holding up both hands. "It's just me. Adrian's asking for you." Elena was on her feet before her brain fully caught up. "He's awake?" "For now. Medic says the surgery went well, no major damage. He got lucky." Lucky. The word felt absurd applied to a man who'd been shot. But he was alive. Elena followed Kira through the building to the medical bay. Adrian was propped up in a hospital bed, his shoulder heavily bandaged, an IV in his arm. He looked pale and exhausted, but alert. His eyes found Elena the moment she entered. "You look terrible," he said. "You got shot and you're critiquing my appearance?" Someone has to maintain standards. Despite everything, Elena laughed. It came out shaky and half-broken, but it was real. She pulled a chair close to the bed and sat. "How do you feel?" "Like I got shot. You?" "Like I climbed into a helicopter while people tried to kill me." "So, Thursday." "That's not funny." "Little bit funny." Kira cleared her throat. "I'll give you two some privacy. Marcus is monitoring the news feeds. Victor's moving, trying to control the narrative, but the evidence is too strong. FBI's already issued warrants." She left, closing the door behind her. Elena and Adrian sat in silence for a moment. Then Adrian said, "You saved my life." On the roof. "You've saved mine plenty of times. We're even. We're not even close to even." "Then stop keeping score." Elena's voice was soft. "We're a team. That's how teams work." Adrian's hand found hers, his grip weak but steady. When this is over, we're going to have a very long conversation about what happens next. But right now, you need to rest." "I've been resting." "You've been unconscious. There's a difference." "Elena." "Rest. That's an order." His smile was faint but genuine. "Yes, ma'am." She stayed with him as his eyes drifted closed, his breathing evening out into sleep. The medic had said he'd be fine, but Elena needed to see it herself, needed the reassurance of his chest rising and falling. Marcus appeared in the doorway an hour later. "You should see this," he said quietly. Elena followed him to a room filled with monitors. On every screen, news coverage of the past 24 hours played out. Her broadcast, the evidence, federal agents raiding Rothman Fertility Clinic, Victor Osborne's face plastered across headlines with words like conspiracy and genetic manipulation and RICO charges. "It's working," Marcus said. "Your testimony combined with the evidence. Victor's empire is collapsing. People are turning on him, cutting deals, running for cover." "Where is he?" "Gone to ground. But he can't hide forever. Too many people looking for him now." Elena stared at Victor's face on the screen. This man who'd engineered her pregnancy, who'd turned her body into a battlefield, who'd nearly destroyed everything. "I want to be there," she said. "When they bring him in, I want to see it. I'll make sure that happens." She returned to Adrian's room, to the man sleeping in the hospital bed, and made herself a promise. Victor Osborne would pay for what he'd done. Not tomorrow, not next week, but soon. And Elena would make sure he looked her in the eye when everything he'd built came crashing down. Victor Osborne stayed hidden for 3 days. 3 days during which Elena watched federal agents dismantle his empire piece by piece. They raided his properties, froze his accounts, arrested his associates. The news ran constant updates, each new revelation more damning than the last. Money laundering, racketeering, conspiracy to commit genetic fraud. The list grew longer by the hour. Adrian was healing faster than the medic expected, though he refused to stay in bed longer than necessary. By the second day, he was up and moving, his shoulder still bandaged, but functional enough to drive Elena crazy with his restlessness. "You're going to tear your stitches," she said, watching him pace the room like a caged animal. "I'm fine." "You got shot 72 hours ago. You're not fine." "I've had worse." "That's not the reassurance you think it is." He stopped pacing, turning to face her. Victor's still out there. As long as he's free, you're in danger. The FBI has a manhunt going. Every law enforcement agency in 3 states is looking for him. He can't hide forever. He doesn't need forever. He just needs one opening, one chance to get to you. Elena crossed the room, standing close enough to force him to look at her instead of the invisible threats he was constantly scanning for. Then we make sure he doesn't get that chance. How? By being smarter than him, by anticipating his next move. His next move is to run, get out of the country before the indictments come through. Is it? Elena had been thinking about this, turning it over in her mind during the long hours sitting with Adrian while he recovered. Victor's entire identity is built on control, on being the one pulling the strings. Running means admitting defeat. His ego won't let him do that. Adrian studied her, something shifting in his expression. What are you thinking? I'm thinking he's going to make one last play, something big, something that either destroys us or destroys him. That's a terrifying thought. It's also probably accurate. Marcus appeared in the doorway, phone in hand. We've got movement. One of Victor's known associates just made contact, says Victor wants to meet. Where? Adrian asked immediately. The old Riverside Hotel, neutral ground. He's offering a deal. What kind of deal? He'll turn himself into federal custody in exchange for Elena's testimony being recanted. Says if she admits the evidence was fabricated, he'll go quietly. Elena laughed, a sharp, bitter sound. He thinks I'll lie for him? After everything he's done? He thinks he has leverage, Adrian said quietly. The question is what? The answer came an hour later in the form of a video sent to Marcus's encrypted phone. Victor's face filled the screen, that same pleasant smile he'd worn in the records room. Elena, he said, like they were old friends. I thought you might need additional motivation to accept my very generous offer, so I've arranged a demonstration. The camera panned to show a man tied to a chair, 50s, balding, terrified. It took Elena a moment to recognize him. Dr. Richard Rothman, the clinic director. Dr. Rothman has been very cooperative, Victor continued. He's provided detailed testimony about how he was coerced into facilitating the genetic manipulation, how Adrian Varelli threatened him, how you, Elena, were complicit in the scheme from the beginning. That's a lie, Elena breathed. Of course it is. But Dr. Rothman is a respected physician. His testimony will carry weight, especially when presented alongside fabricated evidence of payments from you to the clinic. By the time I'm done, you'll be facing conspiracy charges alongside me. Unless, of course, you recant. The video cut off. Elena stared at the blank screen, her hands clenched into fists. He's going to kill Rothman whether I cooperate or not. Probably, Adrian agreed. But first he's going to use him to muddy the waters. Make the case complicated enough that prosecutors have to consider his version of events. So what do? We go to the meeting, but not the way Victor expects. Kira entered, drawn by the conversation. That's suicide. Victor's not offering a deal. He's setting a trap. I know. That's why we spring it first. Adrian was already planning. Elena could see it in his eyes. Victor thinks he has control because he has Rothman. But what he doesn't know is that we have something better. What? Elena asked. Sarah Brennan, the journalist. She's been building a secondary case against Victor for years. If we give her access to Rothman, let her document his testimony before Victor can kill him or coerce him further, we can preempt whatever story Victor's planning to tell. How do we get to Rothman? Marcus asked. Victor's not going to just hand him over. No, but he will bring him to the meeting as proof he has leverage, and when he does, we take him. That's insane, Kira said. It's the only play we have. Elena listened to them plan. Extract teams, backup positions, contingencies for every possible way this could go wrong. And there were a lot of ways it could go wrong. I'm going with you, she said when they paused. Absolutely not. Adrian's response was immediate. Victor asked for me specifically. If I don't show, he'll know something's wrong. Then we'll make him think you're there. Use a decoy. Stage it. He'll see through that. You said it yourself. Victor's smart. He'll be looking for exactly that kind of trick. Elena moved closer to Adrian, lowering her voice. I need to be there. To see this through. You're pregnant. You're a civilian. I've been shot at, nearly blown up, and climbed into a helicopter under fire. I'm not a civilian anymore. I'm someone who has just as much stake in this ending as you do." Adrian's jaw clenched. For a long moment, they stood locked in silent battle, a fight they'd had before, a fight Elena was determined to win. Finally, he said, "You wear a vest. You stay in the vehicle until I give the all clear. And if I say run, you run. No arguments." "Agreed." "I mean it, Elena." "So do I." The Riverside Hotel had been abandoned for years, a monument to the city's industrial decline. 7 stories of broken windows and water damage, scheduled for demolition that kept getting delayed. Perfect for a clandestine meeting. They arrived an hour before the scheduled time, Marcus and Kira securing the perimeter while Adrian walked Elena through the plan one more time. Victor will want high ground, probably the top floor. He'll have men positioned throughout the building, exits covered. Our advantage is that he doesn't know we're bringing our own team. Sarah Brennan was already in position with her camera crew, not the kind of journalists who waited for permission, the kind who documented first and asked forgiveness later. "When you get Rothman out, bring him straight to me," Sarah said. "I'll get his testimony on record before Victor can spin this." "If we get him out," Kira corrected. "When?" They moved into position as the sun started setting, casting long shadows across the abandoned hotel. Elena stayed in the vehicle with Marcus, watching the building's entrance through binoculars. At exactly 6 p.m., Victor's cars arrived. 4 vehicles, at least a dozen men. And in the middle of it all, Dr. Rothman being half-dragged, half-carried into the building. "He's alive," Elena reported. "Looks rough, but mobile." "Copy that." Adrian's voice crackled through the comms. "Wait for my signal." The minutes crawled past. Elena watched the building, counting exits, tracking movement in the windows. Victor's men were taking positions exactly as Adrian had predicted. "We've got eyes on Victor," Kira reported. "6th floor. He's got Rothman with him. 4 guards." "Can you get a clean shot?" Adrian asked. "Not without risking Rothman." "Then we do this the hard way. Elena, stay in the vehicle." "I know the plan." "I'm serious. You don't move until—" Gunfire erupted inside the building. Not from Adrian's team, from somewhere else entirely. "Contact!" Kira shouted. "We've got unknown shooters, east side. This isn't Victor's people." "FBI!" someone was shouting. "Federal agents! Drop your weapons!" The whole operation was collapsing into chaos. Elena watched in horror as federal agents poured into the building from multiple directions, converging on Victor's position. "Someone tipped them off," Marcus said. "We need to abort." But Adrian was already inside, so was Kira. "I'm not leaving them," Elena said. "Elena, don't—" She was out of the vehicle before Marcus could finish, running toward the building's service entrance. She could hear him cursing behind her, following because he couldn't let her go alone. Inside, the hotel was chaos. Gunfire echoed through empty corridors. FBI agents in tactical gear were everywhere, shouting commands, securing rooms. Elena pushed through it all, following the route to the 6th floor that Adrian had made her memorize. Stairs. Hallways. The building groaned around her, unstable and dangerous. She found them on the 6th floor, Adrian and Kira pinned down behind an overturned desk, Victor's men on one side, FBI agents advancing from the other. And in the middle of it all, Victor Osborne with a gun to Dr. Rothman's head. "Nobody moves!" Victor shouted. His composure was cracking, desperation bleeding through. "I walk out of here with Rothman or he dies. Your choice." An FBI agent, older, gray-haired, wearing a vest marked negotiator, stepped forward. "Mr. Osborne, you're surrounded. Put down the weapon and we can talk." "We're past talking. I want safe passage to the airport. A plane fueled and ready. And immunity for any charges related to—" "You know we can't do that." "Then Rothman dies." Elena saw Adrian shifting position, trying to get an angle. But Victor was too careful, using Rothman as a shield. She stepped out from behind cover. "Elena, no!" Adrian's voice was sharp with fear, but she ignored him, walking forward with her hands raised. Every eye in the room swiveled to her. "Victor," she said quietly. "Let him go." Victor's attention snapped to her, something like triumph flashing across his face. "Finally, the woman of the hour, come to bargain for the good doctor's life? Come to end this." "By doing what? Offering yourself in exchange? How noble, how predictable." By giving you what you actually want. Elena kept moving, slowly, hands still raised. You don't care about Rothman. You don't even care about the Empire anymore. You care about winning, about not being beaten by Adrian Varelli's son. I'm not his son, Adrian said from behind her. Yes, you are. Elena kept her eyes on Victor, and that's what this has always been about, hasn't it? Your partner died and left everything to the one person who didn't want it, who'd rather see it all burn than continue his legacy. That must have hurt. Knowing Vincent chose Adrian over you. Victor's expression darkened. Vincent was a fool who let sentimentality cloud his judgment. Or maybe he saw something in Adrian that he never saw in you. Shut up. The truth is, Victor, you've already lost. The FBI is here. Your empire is gone. Your associates are cutting deals. Whether you kill Rothman or not, whether you kill me or not, you're finished. Then I might as well take as many of you with me as I can. His finger tightened on the trigger. Elena saw it happening in slow motion, Victor's hand moving, Rothman's eyes going wide with terror, Adrian diving from cover. She didn't think, just moved. Elena crashed into Rothman, shoving him aside. The gun went off deafeningly loud in the confined space. Something burned across Elena's arm, but she kept moving, taking Rothman down to the floor and covering him with her body. Above them, chaos exploded. Adrian hit Victor like a freight train, driving him backward. The gun flew from Victor's hand, skittering across the floor. FBI agents rushed forward. Kira was shouting something Elena couldn't hear over the ringing in her ears. And then it was over. Victor was on the ground, 3 agents on top of him, securing his hands behind his back. He was still shouting, still fighting, but it was finished. Adrian was beside Elena in seconds, checking her over. You're hit. Just a graze. Her arm was bleeding, but the pain was distant, unimportant. Rothman, is he? The doctor was sitting up, shaking but alive. I'm okay. Sarah Brennan appeared with her camera crew, already documenting everything. Dr. Rothman, I'm Sarah Brennan with Metropolitan News. Can you tell me what happened here? Rothman looked at her, then at Victor being dragged to his feet by federal agents, then at Elena. Victor Osborne coerced me into facilitating genetic manipulation, he said, his voice growing stronger. He threatened my family, my practice. He forced me to use Adrian Varelli's genetic material without consent, to impregnate Ms. Carter as part of a conspiracy to gain control of Vincent Varelli's criminal empire. Everything she said in her broadcast was true. I'm willing to testify to all of it. Sarah's camera captured every word. Victor was screaming now, fighting against the agents. You have no idea what you've done. You think the FBI will protect you? You think testimony matters? I have connections that had connections, Adrian interrupted. He walked over to where Victor was being held, his expression cold. Past tense. They're all gone now. Every single person who might have helped you is either arrested or running for their life. You're alone, Victor. You lost. I'll get out. I always get out. Not this time. Victor's eyes found Elena. For a moment, all the charm and composure were gone, replaced by pure hatred. That child you're carrying should have been mine to control. Everything should have been mine. But it's not, Elena said quietly. It never was. The FBI agents dragged Victor away, still shouting threats and promises that rang hollow in the abandoned hotel. Other agents were securing the scene, documenting evidence, taking statements. The negotiator approached Adrian. We're going to need statements from all of you, and Ms. Carter needs medical attention. I'm fine, Elena said. You're bleeding. It's a graze. Let the EMTs decide that. They were led outside where ambulances waited along with what looked like half the city's media. Cameras flashed as Elena emerged, her arm bandaged by paramedics, Adrian beside her. Sarah Brennan was already doing a live broadcast, laying out the entire conspiracy for anyone who'd listen. Dr. Rothman was giving his statement to federal agents, the words that would seal Victor's fate. Marcus appeared with water bottles and exhausted smiles. Well, that was something. That's one word for it, Kira said. Elena sat on the ambulance bumper, letting the paramedic finish bandaging her arm. The bullet had barely grazed her, a burn more than anything. She'd been lucky. They'd all been lucky. Adrian sat beside her, his own shoulder rebandaged after the exertion had opened his wound slightly. You disobeyed a direct order back there. I know. You could have been killed. So could Rothman. That wasn't your responsibility. Yes, it was. Elena looked at him. Victor made it my responsibility the moment he used my body in his scheme. Rothman was just another pawn. I couldn't let him die for that. Adrian was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "You're going to be impossible to protect, aren't you?" "Probably." "That's terrifying." "Good. Now you know how I feel." Something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Recognition that whatever this was, whatever they were becoming, it was built on more than just survival. The FBI kept them for hours, taking statements, documenting everything. By the time they were cleared to leave, it was past midnight and Elena was swaying on her feet. "Come on," Adrian said, guiding her toward where Kira had a car waiting. "Let's get you somewhere you can rest." "Where?" "Somewhere safe. Somewhere that's not a safe house, or a bunker, or abandoned building." They drove to a hotel, a real one, with actual guests and room service and beds that weren't surrounded by weapons. Adrian got them a suite, top floor, with views of the city spread out like constellations. Elena stood at the window, looking out over the lights, trying to process everything that had happened. A week ago, she'd been walking down an aisle toward a future that felt empty. Now she was standing in a hotel room with a man who'd saved her life repeatedly, carrying his child, having just helped bring down a criminal empire. "What are you thinking?" Adrian asked from behind her. "That my life is completely unrecognizable from what it was 7 days ago." "Regret it?" "No." The answer came immediately. I should regret all of it, but I don't." He moved to stand beside her, careful of his injured shoulder. "What happens now?" "We figure it out." Elena turned to face him. "We have about 6 months before this baby arrives. That's 6 months to decide what kind of life we want to build. Together? If you want that." Adrian studied her face, searching for something. "I don't know how to do this. The domestic thing, the relationship thing. I've spent my entire adult life avoiding exactly this kind of complication." "I don't know how to do it either. I was about to marry someone I didn't love because it seemed like the logical choice. We're both starting from zero here." "That's not exactly reassuring." "It's honest." Elena reached for his hand. "We can figure it out, together. Or we can co-parent from a distance. Your choice." He laced his fingers through hers. "I don't want distance." "What do you want?" "This. You. The baby. All of it. Even though it terrifies me." "Me too." Elena smiled. "Guess we're both terrified together then." "Guess so." He kissed her then, soft and careful and full of promise. When they broke apart, Elena rested her forehead against his. "We're going to be terrible at this," she said. "Probably. We'll make mistakes. Definitely. But we'll figure it out." "Yeah." Adrian pulled her closer, mindful of their various injuries. "We will." The next few weeks were a blur of legal proceedings and media attention. Victor Osborne's trial was expedited given the mountain of evidence against him. Dr. Rothman's testimony, combined with the documentation Elena had recovered and Sarah Brennan's reporting, built an airtight case. Elena watched from his gallery as Victor was sentenced to 40 years in federal prison on charges ranging from conspiracy to racketeering to genetic manipulation. He never looked at her, never acknowledged her existence. He'd already disappeared into whatever mental space allowed him to believe he was still in control. Adrian sold his father's remaining assets, using the money to establish a foundation for victims of genetic crimes. It wasn't enough to erase Vincent Varelli's legacy, but it was a start. Elena's pregnancy progressed. Morning sickness gave way to the second trimester, her body changing in ways that were both terrifying and miraculous. Adrian went to every appointment, asked every question, slowly transforming from a man who'd never imagined fatherhood into someone who read parenting books at 3 a.m. David called once. Elena answered, expecting anger or hurt. Instead, he sounded relieved. "I just needed to know you were okay," he said. "That you chose this. That it was my choice," Elena confirmed. "Not the way it started, but the way it ended. That was all me." "Good. That's good." He paused. "For what it's worth, you look happy. In the news coverage, really happy." "I am." "Then I'm glad." even if it wasn't with me. They said goodbye with no hard feelings, two people who'd almost made a terrible mistake, recognizing they'd both dodged the same bullet. Elena's family took longer to come around. Her mother couldn't understand why she'd chosen this life over the safe, predictable one they'd planned. But when they met Adrian, really met him, not just the version from news reports, something shifted. "He looks at you like you're the only person in the room," her mother said quietly during one visit. "David never did that." "No," Elena agreed. "He didn't." "You're happy?" "Terrified, but happy." "Then that's enough." 5 months after Victor's arrest, Elena moved into a house Adrian had found. Not a safe house, not a fortress, just a home. 3 bedrooms, a yard, far enough from the city to feel safe but close enough to stay connected. They painted the nursery together, arguing good-naturedly about colors. Adrian wanted blue, Elena wanted green. They compromised on yellow. "It's aggressively cheerful," Adrian said, surveying their work. "It's perfect. It's going to give the baby hallucinations." "You're being dramatic. I'm being realistic." They were covered in paint and smiling, and Elena thought this might be the most normal moment they'd ever shared. No gunfire, no conspiracies, just 2 people building a life from scratch. The baby came 3 weeks early, on a Tuesday morning when Elena's water broke while she was making breakfast. Adrian drove to the hospital with the kind of focused intensity usually reserved for tactical operations, gripping the wheel like it might escape. "Breathe," Elena said between contractions. "I am breathing. I meant for you, not me." Labor lasted 14 hours. Adrian stayed the entire time, holding her hand, talking her through contractions, looking slightly green whenever the nurses described what was happening. "You've been shot, and you're squeamish about childbirth?" Elena asked during a break. "Bullets, I understand. This is terrifying. You're about to be a father." "I know. That's the terrifying part." When their daughter finally arrived, small and perfect and screaming her displeasure at the world, Adrian cried. Not the quiet kind of crying, but full-on tears streaming down his face as he held her for the first time. "She's so small," he said, his voice cracking. "She's actually pretty average size," the nurse said kindly. "She's perfect." Elena watched him fall in love with their daughter in real time. Watched the transformation from a man who'd spent his life avoiding connections to someone who couldn't stop staring at this tiny human they'd created. They named her Sophia. No middle name, just Sophia Varelli. Simple, perfect. The first few months were chaos, sleep deprivation and diaper changes, and learning how to be parents when neither of them had any idea what they were doing. They made mistakes, fought about stupid things, figured it out together. Kira and Marcus became unofficial godparents, showing up with supplies and advice, and occasionally taking Sophia so Elena and Adrian could sleep for more than 2 hours. Sarah Brennan won a Pulitzer for her reporting on the Osborne case. She sent them a bottle of champagne with a note, "To the story that changed everything." Life found a rhythm. Not perfect, not smooth, but theirs. Elena went back to work part-time at a veterinary practice closer to home. Adrian started consulting on security issues for legitimate businesses, using his skills without the violence. They built something neither of them had expected: a family, a life. A future that wasn't defined by the trauma that brought them together, but by the choices they made afterward. On Sophia's first birthday, they threw a party in their backyard. Friends, family, people who'd helped them survive, and people who were helping them build something new. Elena stood on the porch watching Adrian with Sophia on his shoulders, making her laugh with exaggerated expressions. Marcus was attempting to grill hamburgers while Kira gave unhelpful commentary. Her mother was showing baby pictures to anyone who'd listen. Normal, ordinary, beautiful. "You look happy," Sarah Brennan said, appearing beside her with a glass of wine. "I am," Elena said, and meant it. "Even after everything?" "Because of everything." Elena watched her daughter, this child who'd been conceived as a weapon and became the catalyst for destroying an empire. "None of this was planned. None of it was what I thought I wanted, but I wouldn't change any of it. Not even the part where you got shot at repeatedly?" "Okay, maybe I'd change that part." Sarah laughed. "For what it's worth, you two make it look easy." We're excellent liars then, Elena smiled. It's not easy. We're still figuring it out. But we're figuring it out together. Adrian looked up, catching her eye across the yard. He smiled. The real one. The one that made him look years younger. Elena smiled back. I should get back, Sarah said. But thank you for trusting me with your story. Thank you for telling it right. After Sarah left, Elena made her way across the yard to where Adrian was entertaining Sophia with increasingly absurd facial expressions. Having fun? She asked. Your daughter thinks I'm hilarious. Our daughter. And she's one. Everything is hilarious to her. I choose to take it as a compliment to my comedic skills. Sophia reached for Elena, and Adrian carefully transferred her. She immediately grabbed Elena's hair, tugging with surprising strength. Ow! Yes. Hello to you too, monster. Adrian wrapped his arm around Elena's waist, the three of them standing together in the middle of their chaotic, imperfect, wonderful life. You ever think about that day? He asked quietly. The wedding. Sometimes. It feels like a different lifetime. It was a different lifetime for both of us. Do you regret any of it? Which part? The kidnapping, the multiple shootouts, or the part where I fell in love with you? Elena's breath caught. They'd never said it, not directly, danced around it, implied it, showed it in 1,000 different ways, but never actually said the words. That last part, she managed. Do you regret that? Not for a second. He turned her to face him, Sophia balanced between them. I love you, Elena Carter. You and this perfect chaos we've built. All of it. I love you too. The words came easily, naturally. Even though you're terrible at grilling and you panic when Sophia has a diaper blowout. Those are completely reasonable reactions. They're really not. He kissed her then, soft and sweet, their daughter between them making happy babbling sounds. When they broke apart, Elena looked around at the life they'd built from the ashes of violence and manipulation and fear. At the friends who'd become family, at the home they'd created, at the future stretching ahead of them, uncertain but theirs to shape. We did it, she said quietly. Did what? Survived. Built something real. Made it to the other side. Adrian pulled both of them closer. Yeah, we did. Sophia chose that moment to spit up on both of them, completely destroying the moment. And this, Elena said, wiping baby vomit off her shirt, is our glamorous new life. Wouldn't trade it for anything. Not even for a life without baby vomit? Not even then. They cleaned up, rejoined the party, and continued building the imperfect, messy, beautiful life they'd chosen. Together. Because that's what they were now. Not a kidnapper and his victim. Not pawns in someone else's game. Partners. Parents. People who'd survived hell and decided to build heaven from the wreckage. And as the sun set over their backyard full of friends and laughter and love, Elena Carter, who'd once felt trapped in a life built on logic rather than love, realized she was exactly where she was supposed to be. Not because someone else had decided. Not because it made sense on paper, but because she'd chosen it. They'd both chosen it. And that made all the difference.